Nick went down. Unbelievable.
Yes, that's actually.
And is now OOP, as they say in dog racing, out of picture. In terms of the college football championship, there would be almost no way that these committee people, even if they bring back Condoleezza Rice and she accepts a bribe from Jose Suleiman, there would seem to be no way that you could somehow work Alabama back in the equation. Is there, with 2 losses? And possibility that they would have 4 losses on the season. Well, you can't say that because they won those games. And your man Jimbo, what's he on? Like a 9-game losing streak? That's unbelievable. Jimbo Fisher.
I don't know how much they've lost in a row. They have not played well the entire year. Jimbo, like they're talking, his buyout's like $50 million, and they're considering it. Like that's how bad this is.
Imagine that, $50 million they're going to give this cat to fail.
Go.
Wow. Did we all make some bad career choices? We should have just been failing college football coaches.
The time.
Wake up with Defo, joined by Lubie. Welcome to the Defo Show.
Good morning. I was going to say South Florida, but I guess it's the world at large. I hope everyone is having I mean, I presume most of you just woke up if you are with me. So you're probably not already having a good morning. Having a morning. I've been up for like hours now. My wife is flying to San Francisco. So guess who drops her off? That's me. Now, when I go, I don't really go on a lot of trips without her, but I don't think she'd be dropping me off. But I dropped her off, the doting husband, and here's Cecilia to say good morning to you all. Hello, Cecilia. Good morning. Jim Sarney will enjoy this. But she feels like she owns the home. Hopefully everyone had a good evening is what I meant to say. There was a big announcement yesterday, and I won't talk too much about that. I didn't see it. I didn't hear it. I do find it funny that one party usually fights with itself, and the other party, no matter how deranged it gets, bans down the hatches. So I find it interesting that one party that usually bans down the hatches is not only going at each other's throats, but it's at like DEFCON 5, right? Isn't it? Or DEFCON 1, whatever. It's the craziest one. That's where it is, because they have 2 uber egomaniacal people who believe in fascism, which is weird. Like in America, we usually are not really big fans of fascism, but these 2 individuals are huge fans of fascism, like literally praise every fascist, dead or alive, and spat out every fascist guideline and topic point, and pretty much are clear that they want to be fascists, which is a tyrant or a dictator, whatever term suits you, makes you happy. Both these people are in the same party, and they were friends, and now they want to go at it. So as someone who's a fan of the other party, for the first time, it's fun to see that party have dissension and go at each other. I'm enjoying it. I'm going to pull my TO and get some popcorn and just watch the fun. Otherwise, there may be I don't know if it's official tonight or not, a big announcement when it comes to Major League Baseball in regarding to the Marlins. And it's funny, for all the pitchers the Marlins have had, and they've had a lot of great pitchers in their time, they haven't won a Cy Young. And usually because their offenses are a disaster, their pitchers don't have a good enough record. Like Kevin Brown was amazing. His record was Alida was really good. His record was Josh Beck was really good. His record was AJ Burnett, really good. Record was this rotation now, they've had some good guys the last few years. Jose Fernandez was a guy that actually flirted with a God rest his soul and probably would have gotten a Cy Young, but he tragically passed. So they've had a good amount of pitchers in their short time in the Marlins. They've never won a Cy Young, and I don't even know if they've been. I guess Brown one of those years was so good that maybe he was in top 3 or 4, but they've never really flirted with a Cy Young. By all accounts, Sandy Alcantara for the Miami Marlins will win a Cy Young. You haven't heard anything about it because the Marlins were dreadful. They have no hope. They have no future. Their manager's gone. Their president, who was supposed to turn things around in 5 years, is gone. So there's no buzz around here. Or look, I went on MLB and on multiple websites just to see if they were talking about it, because Jim Sarney's told me Sandy Alcantara's winning the Cy Young today, and I'm like, what? Like, I mean, and I get it. We're in Dolphins mode because they look really good, and we're in Canes mode because they've been bad, and I'm big on my Knowles, and NBA's here with college basketball just starting the last few days or a week ago. It's fun. FSU's already 0-3 playing 3 horrendous teams, so I guess it was more than, I guess it's been a few days, or at least a week. that I'm not worried about the baseball awards. But, when your guy is up for a Cy Young, that's something that should carry some weight. The fact that I've heard nothing about it down here, I've heard there's nothing nationally. Like they're talking about manager of the year. They usually at least talk about the candidates or talk about if it's a runaway. Like I still don't know why it's runaway. Look, Alcantara 3/4 of the year through was a runaway. ERA wise, though, he's not a top. He's not a top strikeouts. He is a top the complete games. His record is Now it's better than what King Felix's was. It's better than even DeGrom's when DeGrom won a couple Cy Youngs. So, I mean, when you look at that offense, what that offense was, when you look what that team was, the fact that he is 14-9 with a 2.28 ERA and had 207 strikeouts with 6 complete games, which is literally double the number 2 in the league. Yeah, I'm not saying he shouldn't win a Cy Young. What I'm saying is Urias had a really good year. Gallen had a really good year. Like a lot of guys had good years. In the end, like Alcantara, because of how bad the Marlins were, sort of came back to the pack a bit. Like where he was leading in ERA, leading in all these categories. He's leading in one category now. It's a category that doesn't exist. Like if you pitch 6 innings now in baseball, that's a quality start. If you pitch 7, they're like, oh my God, he won 7. The fact that Alcantara 6 times out of what is 30 starts or so had a complete game. So like almost a quarter of his starts was a complete game. That's like old school. So it's a phenomenal year. I'm not saying he doesn't deserve the Cy Young, but I didn't think he was head and shoulders by the end of the year, the Cy Young winner. I'm being told he is, yet I'm seeing nothing about it. So supposedly that will be announced today. We'll see. We'll see if the Cy Young for the National League and American League is announced, and we'll see if it is Sandy Alcantara. That would be cool, as the Marlins have nothing to hold on to at least have one dude that wins the Cy Young. That was, yeah, exactly. As Andy says, best leading performance from a future team. But there was a bunch of guys that did that, though. I mean, Gallen, again, the Diamondbacks were horrendous. Zach Gallen's stats are very comparable to Zach Gallen. I bring up Zach Gallen because he was a former Marlin, who they used to get Jazz Chisholm, who didn't play pretty much the entire year. Another guy that actually has talent for the Marlins, but is hurt. So it would be cool for him to win a Cy Young. The Marlins don't have that. I say we because I am a Marlins fan. It's hard to be one. They kick you when you're down. Quite often, they kick you when you're up, when you win World Series, and then they kick you when you're down. But yes, Alcantara winning a Cy Young would be really cool. So we'll see what happens with that. You had a really interesting night when it came to college football and college basketball. The professor's Ball State theory fell flat for the first time in the last 3 weeks. And of course, it was a time that Defo, who's in Atlantic City, by the way, this is the Defo Show with Lubie, no Defo. He is in Atlantic City right now. He may join me later. And I use the term may because we had set up a time. I then booked a couple guests and was going to try and move him around. Before I could move him around, he texted me, call me at this time, going back to sleep, meaning he won't be up and I probably won't have him on. But if Jeff DeForest is so inclined to be coherent and awake, he will join us. He will be back on this show Friday morning for Degenerate Friday. We will not be having Kicking It Old School Tony Segredo today. We will have it tomorrow. So we will double up. We will have the Highly Apart Trivia Challenge with Dave Gurgles Gurgly tomorrow. And then we will also have Kicking It Old School with Tony Segredo. Thank you to Texas Roadhouse and Catholic Health Services tomorrow. So we're going to have a busy day tomorrow. We also have a busy day today as coming up at 7:35, the team that has stolen the hearts and captivated South Florida, or should be. If they haven't yet, then you're living under a rock. The Miami Dolphins, one of their greats, one of their more recent borderline Hall of Famers, OJ McDuffie, will be joining me at about 7:35. And then around 8:35, we will have David Furones, who actually covers the Miami Dolphins for the Sun Sentinel. So going Dolphins heavy with throw college football because OJ McDuffie is a Penn State great. I think Penn State came in 11 on the recent college football playoff poll. David Furones not only is a Cane, but actually covered the Canes for a couple of years. That's how we started doing different things with David Furones, because he covered the Canes. He was a beat writer for the Canes for Sun Sentinel. So he still keeps an eye on the Canes. We'll have him jump on, talk a little bit about, because he was really excited about the Cristobal hire. He tweeted a lot about it. He hasn't really been negative, but I'm curious where he stands with the Miami Hurricanes as they now sit at 5-5, facing two teams that so far are better. I mean, Clemson, whatever they've struggled, they're better than Miami. And Pittsburgh, whatever their struggles, they're better than Miami. So we will talk with those gentlemen as the show goes on. But yeah, the professor's Ball State theory, which had worked the last 3 weeks. Defo's up in Atlantic City. Defo reaches out to the professor because he knows it's Maction Tuesday, and the professor's been doing really well on the Maction. And he wanted to know about some other stuff. So Professor gave him Michigan State, which ended up being a great game versus Kentucky. It went to double overtime, and Michigan State not only covered, Michigan State won outright. So that was pretty cool. And the professor gave Defo that one, and that was a winner. Nice. The other one was the Ball State theory that the professor has been riding really high and doing really well with. And so Defo gets on it, and of course, it crashes and burns. And Ball State struggled last night and then lost to Ohio. And now, Drunken Jemmy was on with us Monday, and he is originally an Ohio guy. So when Defo threw that game at him, Drunken Jemmy said, now go Ohio. So there you go. At least someone said Ohio. So that was a big deal last night. And then the college football top 25, college football playoff top 25 was released. Not much is new. You still have Georgia number 1. You still have Ohio State number 2. You have Michigan number 3. You have TCU 4. You have Tennessee 5. What's interesting to me is there are 3 teams in the top 7, and not one's Alabama. Look, Alabama now has lost twice and almost lost again to Ole Miss this weekend. So Alabama doesn't belong there. But it is funny that you have LSU at 7, Tennessee at 5. You have Georgia at 1, so 3 out of the top 7, and no Alabama. The curious thing to me is, for once, it felt like we weren't going to have 2 SEC teams. It felt like you'd have Georgia, winner of Ohio State, Michigan. You'd get a TCU, and if Oregon held, which they were supposed to because they looked really good, then you'd get that Pac-12 or Oregon or USC, right? Oregon, USC were both top 10 teams. I think they'd play each other in the Pac-12 championship. If that happens, whoever wins that would be like an elimination kind of a thing, Michigan, Ohio State. So you'd get 4 teams, no repeaters from a conference. Tremendous. Well, Oregon loses last weekend to Washington. Of course, whether it's Cristobal or Lanning, it seems like every year they're going to lose that game right before they get into the playoffs, which is what Cristobal did last year before he left for Miami against Utah. Oregon now falls back. They're like at 12. USC moves up. They're like at 7. Oh, I think LSU's 6, I guess. USC sitting around 7. Okay, so USC's now in that discussion, but USC's defense is horrendous. Whereas Oregon was playing great on both sides, USC's defense is horrendous. They have a really good offense. They're fun with Lincoln Riley, Addison, Williams, but their defense is horrible. So they seem primed to get upset by someone to lose. So then what does that do? Who's sitting there at 5? Tennessee. Who's sitting there at 6, 7? LSU. LSU does have 2 losses. But LSU right now is very different than LSU that played Florida State. Now, Florida State's different now too, but leaving them out, they came in at number 19, actually, in the college football playoff pool. LSU looks great right now. This last weekend, they did not play well. They played horrendous, and Arkansas has not been good. Arkansas was a great story with Sam Pittman. Last year, they were ranked a lot of this season early, and they've struggled the last month or so. They got their game together. LSU struggled, but even with the struggle, at this point of the season, a win is a win, especially a conference win, especially in the great SEC. So LSU got the win over Arkansas this weekend. LSU, even with 2 losses, has booked their place as the SEC West participant in the SEC championship game. So if you go and play Georgia and you beat Georgia, look, Georgia's number 1, right? Georgia's undefeated. Georgia loses a close game to number 6. They're going to be in the playoff. Okay. Winner of Ohio State, Michigan, going to be in the playoff. TCU doesn't seem like they're going to have many tests left. The Big 12 sort of sucks. So if they get through, they're in. Who's that 4th team? Well, Tennessee is a 1-loss team, plays no one the rest of the year, doesn't even have to play in the SEC championship game because they can't. They lost to Georgia, who will play in the SEC championship game, so they really can't lose. So you're a 1-loss team out of the SEC. Are you not going to be in the playoff? And you beat Alabama, and you played Georgia pretty well for a little bit and then got annihilated, but you've dominated whoever else you played. LSU, if they beat Georgia, do they not get into the playoff? So you're pretty much, once again, assured a 2 SEC playoff field, which is annoying. Like the SEC, for all their screaming and yelling, isn't good. There's 2 good teams. Texas A&M was a disaster this year. Florida's not good. Kentucky ended up being miserable to the end of the season. Will Levis, who is supposed to be a top 5 pick, is not that good. And that team's not. And I like Mark Stoops a lot. I really do. They've been horrible the last month. Kentucky is not. I don't even know if they're ranked anymore. The SEC is a lot of smoke and mirrors. It's a lot of screaming and yelling. You had all these teams that looked good at one point. you're down to 4. You have 4 good teams. LSU's turned out to be legit. Tennessee seems to be legit. I still have questions about them, but Tennessee seems to be legit. Georgia and Alabama's not the same, but Alabama. Ole Miss is fine, but they're not really good. They are a good running team. Their passing game's in. Their defense has improved, but it's not great. And then the rest of the SEC is not good. Like Arkansas, like it's a lot of So you have 4 teams. Like people talk about the SEC like it's, and look, the Big Ten's not. Look, college football, there's a lot of Like you have Ohio State, Michigan in the Big Ten. Wisconsin's fallen off to the point where they actually fired their coach, who had done a really good job. Iowa's a disaster. Like Penn State's pretty good. Okay, Penn State's ranked high, but they got demolished when they played Michigan. Like the ACC does not even have one team. I mean, Clemson is a 1-loss team, but we've seen what Clemson is this year. So there's not really a great conference right now. So to see the SEC have 2 playoff teams would sort of suck. So that's my soapbox moment for today. This is the Defo Show. No Defo, just Lubie. The Defo Show with Lubie. No Defo, just Lubie here on South Florida Live. Coming up in about 10, 15 minutes, we will talk lots of Miami Dolphins for a lot of the show. And I think we should. I think the Dolphins, for the first time, I don't want to say my lifetime, because in the 90s, I'm trying to remember. See, in the early 80s, I was being just born. So I don't remember them having a good offense and good defense. Because that's the thing, right? In the 80s, their offense was great. Their defense, The 90s, offense was really good. Defense was 2000s, defense was great. Offense was And then the last 10 years or so, both sides were So I've never seen this, where their defense was supposed to be the strong suit. It wasn't. The offense was amazing. And then now finally, with the addition of Bradley Chubb, there she is. Hello, that's my cat, Cecilia. She does what she wants. I'm a Dolphins fan. The Dolphins, the defense, which has sort of struggled prior to this weekend, 2 or 3 games in a row, the defense was great the second half. And the Browns had been playing better, had, I think, the best rushed offense in the NFL, and they could do nothing versus that defense. Bradley Chubb really showed why he got paid a lot of money and why people were so excited that he was going to the Dolphins. You saw Jalen Phillips reborn. You saw Ingram, who has had a lot of success this year with the Dolphins, look really good. Emmanuel Ogbah was hurt, and you didn't know, like you didn't even notice it. Van Ginkel looked like the dude we saw the last couple of years who came out of nowhere. Like Bethel, this corner who I'd never heard of, was playing great. Kohu, the undrafted free agent, played really well. Howard got beat early, but then looked really good the rest of the game. Like you saw the defense you thought you were going to see this season. And for at least one game, both sides looked really good, which I haven't seen from the Dolphins my entire life. So we're going to talk a lot of Dolphins today because we are out of South Florida, and we're not trying to inundate you, but they are top 3 team in the NFL. Like, if you want to say the Eagles are great, you should. They're a 1-loss team. The Dolphins are just as good as them. Dolphins are great on both. The Dolphins are great on offense and good on defense, and have the ability to be great on defense. No one else in the AFC, like the Bills, because the Chiefs don't have that. The Chiefs are great on offense. Their defense is The Bills are great on offense and supposed to be great on defense. They haven't been the last couple of weeks, suffering 2 tough losses to the Jets and to the Vikings. That's why the Dolphins are number 1 in the AFC East and number 2 in the AFC. But the Dolphins are a top 5 team in the league, and the Dolphins maybe top 3. I mean, the NFC is a lot of outside. The Seahawks aren't. I mean, who counts on the Seahawks? The Niners could be interesting, and it's the Eagles. In the AFC, it's the Chiefs, Bills, and the Dolphins. I mean, the Chargers are not what they were supposed to be. The Broncos are a disaster. The Titans have found a way to win, but I mean, I don't have to complain about Tannehill anymore. Tannehill's shown who he is. People don't count on him, and their division's horrendous. So that props the Titans up. The Dolphins are a legit power right now. Again, we temper everything. They have been this for the last 20 years. Whatever side of the ball, one was going to be bad, if not both, with bad coaching and boring. So we temper it, but they look good, and they look strong, and they look confident, and they play as a team in a way we've only really seen down here from the Heat for a long time. The Heat, they're more angry because of that Miami Heat culture, toughness and grittiness, but they play together, and they pick each other up, and they are a band of brothers. The Dolphins haven't been that. The Dolphins have been very individualistic, been very me, I. What can I get? What can I do? And they played that way. This group does not play that way. I mean, the way you're seeing Christian Wilkins attack the quarterback with Phillips. You then had Chubb this last weekend, Ingram. The way you're seeing the offense, Tyreek Hill, Waddle, Mostert, the addition of Wilson, Gesicki get in there. Like Tua be right in the middle of it all. Like they seem to celebrate each other as much as they celebrate themselves. And that's something we haven't seen down here in a long time. So sorry to inundate you. We're going to talk a lot of Dolphins. It's just right now the story. And it's unlike Defo's like negativity sells, which after a while I told him, like, I don't think you're right. Like, we don't get calls like we did, and no one gives a shit because the Dolphins are like being really bad is a story for like a year. Being really bad to mediocre for a long period of time is not a story. It's a death knell, and it's horrendous. And as Dave Hyde has said on the show, and we had Dave Hyde on yesterday, congrats on the book Swagger on and with Jimmy Johnson that's out now. I have a clip that I'll play of Dave Hyde, I'll play it sometimes when he comes on, and it's him talking about please be exciting. It's been so boring, and when a team's boring, it's hard to cover them, and it's hard to talk about them. It just is, whether winning or losing, just be fun. And this team is fun, and their coach is fun. He's weird, good. He's a good weird. Like Brian Flores was weird, but he was bitter, and he was angry, and he was frustrated, and we now know why. His owner is a scumbag who was asking him to lose. Like, not asking, trying to pay him extra to lose. So he had a reason to be angry and bitter and frustrated. But he took it out on his quarterback and his offense, which is weird because he was winning games, but he wasn't winning like this. And they were an interesting team, but they weren't this. So the Dolphins haven't had a coach who's fun. Like, and most teams don't. And I get it. I don't know if there's another coach. I don't know. I don't want to go ever. But right now, like Mike McDaniel, like the dude is just different, taking selfies, joking, quoting hip hop lyrics, but he's also not a soft ass. Because that was the big fear was Mike McDaniel. Oh, he's this funny guy. He's fun. Oh, he's going to let him get away with murder. No. If you see that when they screw around, he's the first one to be in their ass. He's the first one to be in their ear. He's the first one to be on them. No, we don't do that here. So he can be serious, and he definitely, they respect him in that regard, but he also treats them like grown men, not Dan Campbell. Oh, we're men. No, like a grown man. He has conversations. He talks to them. He takes their input. The way he and Tua converse, we didn't see Brian Flores converse like that once. Not once. We didn't see Brian Flores converse with Tua once in the 2 years they were together. Mike McDaniel does it the entire game. And it's what we've talked about that. Like the coach and the quarterback, even Belichick and Brady, who eventually had their breakup, they were in lockstep. You have to be the coach. The quarterback is the coach on the field. The quarterback is the leader on the field. If the coach and the quarterback don't trust each other, then there's no way to succeed. Look what's going on with LaFleur and Aaron Rodgers. Like, yeah, they don't have Devontae Adams. Yes, their offense is different. But there's a disconnect there that's ridiculous. And that it festers and it grows and it becomes worse and worse and worse. And eventually it explodes. And the Dolphins won in spite of it, but the offense was always restrained. Like, Tua never should have been seen in this light. Look, he had the injuries, and there was no talent around. There was every excuse for people to go, yeah, the kid, there's a reason he's not playing well. But that wasn't the issue. Was he wasn't being helped. They were not. Last year they put the two offensive coordinators that were supposed to be there for Tua. They weren't running an offense like this. They weren't doing things to get the ball out of his hands quickly and accentuate the positive, which is what a coach is supposed to do. A coach is supposed to put a player in the best position to succeed. That's what a coach does. The player does the work. The coach doesn't do the work. The coach calls plays and calls schemes to not fit a square peg into a round hole. It's to put the round peg into the round hole, the square peg into the square hole. You fit your scheme and your system around the players you have, not the players you want. Mike McDaniel does that. And yes, Mike McDaniel's running his offense, but if you notice, they didn't really start running the ball a lot till now. His offense is predicated on the run, but their running game sucked, but the passing game was good. So he threw it a lot because the passing game worked. Now they bring in Wilson. The offensive line's gelling. The offensive line's looking like an actual NFL offensive line for the first time in my life. Dan Marino didn't have a line that played like this, the way it's played the last 3 games. To us be able to sit back there, not stay too long, but stay long enough to make plays close and far away. Like, with that, you bring in a Jeff Wilson who complements and works really well with Mostert. Then he started running a lot, and they ran like demons, because that's what a good coach does. You don't force your scheme on the players. You take the players and mold your scheme around them. And that's what we're seeing with the Miami Dolphins. And that's why I've already talked a lot about them, and we will talk a lot more about them. And we will try and talk about the rest of the NFL as well. We will try and talk about other things, sports. We're looking forward to, hopefully tonight, sending out. I know you guys are chatting. I can't talk. So I will, in the break, read what you're saying and respond. Appreciate everyone who has found me today. Appreciate those who will communicate with me. We will have a Mike Mayo's Lunchbox later today on the road. We haven't been on the road in a while. We were doing 2 to 3 road shows a week. We took a week off. Well, this week, back in action. Today we'll be at Shenanigans Sports Pub, East Side. The great Patrick Utter will be joining us. No Defo. We'll be fine. We have Pat, who knows a thing or two about degeneracy, knows a thing or two about sports, and he definitely knows a thing or two about great grub. So at 12 o'clock, Mike Mayo's Lunchbox, live from Shenanigans Sports Pub, East Side. And that place is great. It's a lot of fun, and definitely I love my landlubbers out west. Really a great place. And Soufrane, coincidentally, is a huge, Alex Soufrane, one of the proprietors there, is a huge degenerate, great guy. And Shenanigans, they remind me of one of them, but another. Both guys are huge into sports, huge into, they like to dabble into gambling, but they also know their food, and they know their customer service, and they know what people want and when they want it, and they want to do what they can to get it to them. They really remind me of one another. Love my landlubbers out west, and we love Shenanigans out east. Today we will be at Shenanigans. Tomorrow night I'll be at Landlubbers doing my trivia thing, and a lot of you guys have come out, so that's really cool. So we do that it's in Plantation off of Sunrise Boulevard and Pine Island, the northwest corner of Pine Island and Sunrise Boulevard in Plantation, Sunrise Plantation area. We do that every Thursday at 6:30. You get to meet the professor. You get to meet me. It is not the easiest trivia. It is not impossible. It's just not easy. It's different. It's fun. Come check us out at 6:30 tomorrow night. Coming up next, we will talk to a man who is a legend. And I don't mean because he's old. I mean because he was great. He was the kind of thing where he was a guy that Dan Marino could count on. He was a guy that the ball was thrown to him. He was catching it. And what we're seeing a lot now with the Miami Dolphins, yards after the catch. If OJ McDuffie got that ball, he was going somewhere with it. We're seeing that a lot now. We haven't really talked to OJ McDuffie since the good times were rolling. So if we're going to celebrate Dolphins, who better than a guy who has suffered through all of the garbage? He is as big a Dolphin fan as there is, and he does do Dolphins coverage for CBS 4 and his podcast. So we will talk with the one and only OJ McDuffie next. This is the Defo Show with Lubie. No Defo, just Lubie. Coming up next, we'll talk with OJ McDuffie right here on South Florida Live.
Ponies in Style at Champions, the outstanding simulcasting room at beautiful Hialeah Park. Yes, the grand old lady of thoroughbred racing has never been more vibrant, and you can wager on the races from the top tracks around the country while enjoying a cocktail at the Brass Rail Bar or any of the fine food served throughout the facility. If poker is your game, you're covered in style, and you can play all your favorite Vegas-style games, including blackjack, craps, and roulette, in Hialeah Park's sizzling hot casino. Get a player's card when you walk through the door for all kinds of generous amenities, including our favorite, free play, when you come out to the ultimate casino and entertainment destination, Hialeah Park.
Hey folks, Tony Segreto here. Since day one, Catholic Health Services has been part of Old School. And since we've started letting people know about them, it's changed their lives. You see, Catholic Health Services, while being recognized as one of the top places for stroke rehab in the country, it's also about a group of people who not just excel in what they do, from the doctors to the nurses to the therapists, on and on and on. It's how they do what they do every single day that separates them from the pack. They do it with a passion, unmatched, and the inclusion of family in every step of the process. Trust me when I tell you this. If you want the best, unmatched rehab with a special group of skilled, caring people, there is truly only one place, and that one place is Catholic Health Services.
These days, we're all looking for comfort anywhere we can find it. Thank goodness for Landlubbers Raw Bar and Grill in the Plantation location, because they are making sure you are as comfortable as possible. First of all, they're not only open for delivery and pickup. All you have to do is go to landlubbersbarandgrill.com for both pickup and free delivery. Their hours have changed a little bit. Monday through Thursday from 3:30 to 10, and Friday, Saturday, and Sunday from 11:30 to 10. You're going to have the best wings in the world. You're going to have a great burger. You're going to have their amazing soups. Again, Landlubbers Raw Bar and Grill. It's nice and easy. Just go to landlubbersbarandgrill.com for both your pickup and free delivery. Thank goodness for Landlubbers for making you always feel right at home. To be or not to be, that is the question. Whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to take arms against a sea of troubles, and by opposing end them, to die, to sleep, no more, and by asleep, to say we end the heartache and 1,000 natural shocks.
What could that have been about except
Gambling.
to hedge or not to hedge?
The modern day odd couple, Defo and Lubie, are on now. It is, of course, the Defo Show.
I mean, that's not exactly true. We probably are the modern day odd couple. That's very true. Oh, here, hold on. The one and only OJ McDuffie's calling me. So we will do this live on air. Yay. Live radio, ain't it fun? Or internet streaming, whatever the hell we call it. This is the Defo Show. No Defo Show with Lubie. No Defo. Just Lubie here on South Florida Live. We're going to talk with a gentleman coming up right now, a guy that you all know very well. First of all, from his playing days, an elite athlete with the Penn State Nittany Lions, and then a guy that is in the Ring of Honor and probably the last great receiver before this season for the Miami Dolphins, a guy that Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill could model their games after, and it seems like they are. In the Fish Tank podcast, he's a co-host of that. There's so many things. You can check him out on CBS 4 as well. The one and only OJ McDuffie joins us this morning. Good morning, Juice. How you doing, man?
Good morning, Lubie. You're way too kind. I'm not in the Ring of Honor yet.
You're not? Really?
I
That's
won't get in the Ring of Honor. I'm the Walk of Fame.
Oh,
so
shut
I'll
up.
take that.
You will be in the Ring of Honor, and we will make sure
I
that
don't know
happens.
about all that, man. And another thing you said, these boys, man, Waddle and Tyreek Hill, I wouldn't model my game after their game after me, man. Them dudes are too fast, bro. They're way too fast.
You return kicks. You were faster than you let on. You were returning kicks. You're not returning kicks if you're slow. That's for sure.
That's right. That's true.
What's interesting is when we've talked with you so much, Juice, the last few years, and a lot of it, and it's funny. It's a weird conversation because most people don't focus on drops, but that was a thing the Dolphins had issues with. Like, and it seemed like it wasn't just one dude. Like, you can go down the line. And this guy, that guy, this guy, that guy. Every single dude on this team now, that was the one thing that we always adored about you. Dan Marino threw one of the hardest balls ever, and you were not dropping it. You knew if that ball was thrown to OJ McDuffie, he was getting caught. These guys are very similar to that. Not only the yards after the catch and the fun, but they do the fundamentals. Like, Jalen Waddle's had some issues here and there, but other than that, like, you throw the ball in any of these receivers' direction, Sherfield, Wilson Jr., they're catching it, which is impressive to me, and it's a huge step up for this team.
Yeah, you know what? And that's a compliment to, for one, these guys and the hard work they put in. It's also a compliment to Wes Walker, who's one of the best receivers ever played the game.
Yes.
And two, man, they've made these guys complete receivers.
Yep.
Not only are they fast, they run great routes, they got great hands, they block downfield. They do it all. And that's a compliment to what Wes did when he played, man. And they got a bunch of guys that are just hungry. And it's so much fun to watch, Lubie. I mean, you said it, man. The fact that Tua trusts every single one of his receivers, and if they're the guy that's open in the progression, he's going to get it to him. And these guys are making plays. So you're right, man. These guys, man, they've turned that page from what we've seen the past 2 years. And you bring in a guy like Tyreek and a guy like Sherfield. Waddle was already doing his thing, and everybody else just falls in line, man. Because look at Sherfield. You talked about him a little bit. Look at Cedric. They only get a few opportunities a game, so they better take advantage of every single one of them, right?
Well, and they have been, and that's the interesting thing is watching this team, like this. And we talked with you a lot in the offseason. I guess it's been fun time, so we haven't had to commiserate, so we've left you alone a little bit. But I did want to get to enjoy some of the fun with you, which we haven't gotten to do over the last 2 decades. But this offseason, we talked with you a lot because it was funny, and I found it very interesting. Like, people have this, that's why I appreciate you and a lot of the people who cover the game now, Conjemi, where you have the old school mentality, but you also understand the new school. And I never understood, like, this offseason when the Dolphins made the move, to me, that was historic. in Tyreek Hill the negative backlash because Tua doesn't throw it deep well, and Tyreek when first of all you broke down the numbers, Tyreek Hill, most of his catches were within the area Tua is elite. Second, who cares? Like,
Right.
it started, look, in the NBA, it started down here. Eric Spoelstra started this positionless, right? And we've seen it integrated into football where tight ends can catch pitches and where small receivers can go over the middle and where big receivers can do, but like one guy can do everything, and this idea where you need the big guy and then you need the small guy, you need the middle guy. And it was like, no, you just need talent. You just look at the Chiefs. It was all about just putting guys who had talent together and letting their quarterback have some fun. And that's literally what the Dolphins have done. And you're seeing one of the best offenses in the league. And it feels like they're not even scratching the surface yet.
I think it's really exciting, man. It's so funny. You see a team that scored over 30 points like the last 3-4 games. You got a quarterback that's just, playing his tail off, and people are still like, I'm not sure yet. Oh, man, Lubie, I'm finally at the point where I am comfortable, being down a score, being down 10, and not worry whether we can get back in it, because I do feel our offense is that dynamic, that explosive. And the way Tua is playing with the weapons that he has, and the way Mike McDaniel is drawing things up, is just it's so much fun to watch, man. I think that I think our defense is going to catch up. We were always counting on our defense and you're worried about our offense. Now we're worried a little bit more about our defense. But I think they're about to catch up. They'll get healthy, hopefully, over the bye week, and be able to catch up, man. But that offense is dynamic, man. And you watch it. I see that's why I hate watching the game on TV, because I like to watch film like I played.
Okay.
I like to see all 22 out there.
Okay.
And then when I'm watching all 22, I can see guys coming open. I can see the play developing. I can see all that stuff, from my seat in the stadium, man. It's so much fun to watch. There are a lot of guys running open at times, man, and Tua's been finding the right guy most of the time.
Well, and that's the thing is, you brought up a lot there that has been really exciting is good coaches, can scheme this and that, and you'll see a guy get a step here, a step there. It's rare in the NFL to see 2 to 3 guys just running open like it's freaking Steve Spurrier in the 90s. Like this offense is crazy. Like guys are just running free, and you're seeing Tua just pick them apart. And what's interesting is Tua is relishing the role, where Tua was always this mild-mannered, quiet guy. The confidence he's exuding, you're seeing that it was Tyreek Hill building him up. Now it's the other way around, where you can just see them following Tua. And it's funny you said that, because I'm usually the first guy to get frustrated when they're down. I don't even think twice anymore. I'm like, yeah, they'll be fine. And I haven't felt that way since number 13, like 100%.
Right.
Where you were like, okay, they'll be fine. Like I haven't felt that. And I catch myself going, oh, shoot, you just said the Dolphins down by 2 touchdowns will be fine. What the hell?
Yeah.
But then they go and come back. It's amazing.
Yeah, I'll tell you, man. I heard Rondé Gaston talking the other day, too. We felt the same way, man. We kind of enjoyed being down a little bit, because we knew we was going to sling that damn thing all the way yard. You know what I mean? There was no, we're not running the ball now, man. There's no way we're running now, man. Daddy's going to check those pass every single time when he's about to check, man. So that was, that's fun stuff. So let us get down so we can throw this thing around a little bit.
But and when we talked with you a lot before the season about the questions for Tua, and you were like us, where you weren't going to say he was great, but you were going to give him a chance. What has been the most impressive thing to you about Tua so far this season?
Man, I am so impressed with his knowledge of this offense already.
Yeah, that's true.
And I think that has been the reason for his success. And I think that's a little bit of why his flow fell out. He didn't have the offense down. And of course, he had a few coordinators a couple years that underflow, so it's kind of hard. But hell, we're only halfway through the season. He's got this complicated offense, and Mike McDaniel's offense, he's got it down. And I think he's putting that work in, man. You can tell he's putting that work in. And then when people are talking about Tyreek, when he's talking about how accurate Tua was, the most accurate quarterback, better than Mahomes, people were laughing. And now we're seeing all that. So we're seeing the accuracy, we're seeing the knowledge of the offense. Bottom line is we're seeing Alabama Tua right now, and that's impressive,
Well, and that's the thing is you were lucky, and that's why Marino doesn't get enough credit, because it's rare to have a guy with an arm like he did be accurate. Marino was just different. Like he could throw it 60 yards and fit it between 3 dudes. And that's and the anticipation and all those things. You don't usually get that. Tua may not have the huge arm, but his accuracy, he threw 2 passes this weekend that I don't know if I've ever seen. The one to Jalen Waddle where 2 dudes in his face.
Sherfield touchdown and the Waller, yes, sir.
That one was nuts where he threw it, the dude, and they showed it, and I love this. They showed it. I saw on a couple of different replays where Newsome, who was a first-round pick in an elite corner, had stretched out. The ball goes over his hand, where Waddle's not only able to catch it, he's able to regain himself and get the first down. And then the Sherfield touchdown was ridiculous because they needed it. It was a 3rd down. I'm like, just run it, please. And then he throws his strike with pressure, corner of end zone, but still lets his receiver have time to catch it, get 2 feet down easy. And it's like, gee, I have not seen passes like that since Marino. And it's like, this is nuts. And he doesn't get crazy. He's like, yeah, of course. You know, that's what we're supposed to do. And what's interesting is that all seems to come down from McDaniel. We keep, a lot of people, including us, keep questioning a lot of these 4th and 1s he goes for. But, and a lot of football players have said this, and it's interesting. It's about succeeding, getting the first down. But it's also about showing your team, I'm not even thinking about putting that defense on the field because I know you'll get that first down. And even when they fail, he doesn't bat an eye because he wants them to know he's 100% behind them. As a player, how huge is that to know that your coach is with you 100% of the way?
Yeah, you know, it's just big. It really is big. You know, you think about it from the beginning, you know, he challenged the offense by telling them that this is the defense's team.
Yeah, yes.
And so he told them straight up, this is the defensive team. And so the offense said, well, okay, you know, so they stepped it up. So now the defense is sitting there like, you know, all right, well, hell, the offense is holding us down right now. We got to take our butts out there and we got to hold it down. You know, we got to do our part. You know, so I think that he's shown confidence on both sides, and that it resonates, man. And then one side's playing well, and the other side seems to step it up too, man. So he's not afraid to gamble. He's in the analytics. Yeah. The chances of getting a half yard are so much greater than not getting it. You know, and then if not, then hell, defense come out here and make a stop, hold them to 3 points, and we go right back down the field and try to get a touchdown. You know, so I love it. Sometimes it's questionable, but hell, who are we to question a guy with that type of success? You know, we question his clock management. Only, you know, in the 10 games we've played, that clock management's only come back to bite us like one time. But everything else has been great. You know what I mean? So I sit back and I'm about to say something. I say, okay, just shut up, man. The dude is a genius. Leave alone, you know?
Well, and that's the thing is, and because you played in there, look, Shula was probably a little softer when you played for him. Not like a lot of the guys from the 72, 73, 74 team talk about.
Right,
but
he changed by every era. 70 era, he was different than the 80 era to the 90 era, you know?
But he was still Don Shula, right? So there was still, you know, the jaw was there and the great, and Jimmy Johnson was very similar. Mike McDaniel, I don't think is any, you'd have to correct me, but I don't think he's like any, you play for Joe Pa. I don't think he's like any coach you ever played for. When you watch a guy who's just that open, that honest, that analytical, but also that fun at the same time, what do you think about, because that was a big question. Can a guy like this succeed in a league that's so tough and strong? And not only is he succeeding, it seems like he's sort of mocking the system going, yeah, I'm going to do this and I'm going to double down and double down and double down. And I'm going to treat my players as equals and watch how it works. And so far it's worked like gangbusters.
Yeah. I mean, I classify him as a current coach. You know what I mean? Yeah. He's so current with everything he does, his approach to practice, approach to the players, you know, his approach to these new kids, I call them, because there's a different way of motivating these kids than there was when I played. Yeah. You know, Shula and Johnson might be yellers, you know what I mean? Get in your face type of guy. Mike's a builder. He builds these kids up. He builds them up, man, you know, mentally and physically, you know, to make sure they're confident. And it goes out there in the show. Then you look at his drip and his swag, you know what I mean? His gear is like, come on, man. There's no cooler coach in the league, bro. You know what I mean? This dude is as current as it gets, man. I love it, man.
So as we look at the season now, and that's the funny thing is you said it, like you'll find yourself correcting the team while you're watching because you're just so used to it, and then you have to stop yourself. And I've actually started a few weeks ago. Look, the way they started versus the Lions was really frustrating, and I was complaining. And then the second half, it was like, oh, all right, never mind. I sort of pulled back. Where are you with this team when it comes to the rest of the league? Because it feels like going into this year, the AFC was this juggernaut, and it doesn't feel like it is now. It feels like Chargers come back to the pack. Broncos come back to the pack. The Bills have now lost 2 in a row, and Josh Allen is one of the league leaders in interceptions with 10. Like, it feels like the AFC is sort of there for the taking, and the Dolphins are the one team that are just getting better every single week.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. It really is, and man, it's shocking. The AFC East is very shocking, man. The Jets sitting there, and even New England, of course, everybody expected Buffalo to be pretty good. You said it best, man. They dropped a couple big ones, thank goodness. We've gotten head to head with them. We're 2-0 in our division. I'm 2-1 in our division. I mean, we lost to the Jets, but I'm gonna tell you, man, I was looking at some of this. I don't know what it was ESPN or what, and they got us as a tier 3 team. You know what I mean?
Still,
we are definitely a tier 2 team right now, and I think by the end of the season we'll be a tier 1 team. The tier 1 got Super Bowl chances. So I'm not gonna count my chickens yet.
Okay.
I'm not. I know we got a lot of work to do. I do feel, and I know we will get into the playoffs this year, and then we get in there and get a win, and then we just build from there. Once you get in, who knows what'll happen?
Well, and that's the thing is, and look, I get it, having reservations about a team and about a franchise who has not had success over. Look, we talked about it for 2 decades, but there's a lot to be said for. You said it, like, this is a brand new regime. Whatever they've done, they're not supposed to be doing it. They're supposed to just be learning the system. And then you saw, look, the first week Bradley Chubb, they integrated him slow. Not last week. That second half, that reminded me of your days when you had Jason Taylor and Zach Thomas and Daryl Gardner meeting at the quarterback and high-fiving each other as they were sacking. Like, Jalen Phillips looked rejuvenated. Bradley Chubb looked like a kid in a candy store. Christian Wilkins looked dominant. And
he was unbelievable.
That's versus a good team. Like the Browns offensively rushing, which we know is one of the hardest things to block for. They were a sieve, like from the defensive standpoint. Like the Dolphins were dominant, and that's the one thing that was an issue this year. And this weekend looked different. To me, it's like, well, why would it get worse? Like, it's only going to get better. And it feels like they're putting the league on notice.
Yeah. They put on they took on a challenge this week, being able to stop, Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb. And man, they did a great job. Of course they had the one long run for a touchdown, but otherwise, man, it was shut down city. And I think that, Landon Roberts was bringing the wood this past weekend. He was bringing that hat, and you said it best about Phillips. Phillips is always, it's so funny because it might not show up on the stat sheet, but if you watch the all 22 and watch that game, the dude is relentless all the time. Yeah. And it's only a matter of time before all that work, all that hard work and that effort, creates sacks, tackles for losses, big plays. He should have had a pick this week. You know what I mean? Yeah. Went right through his hands. But that's why he plays defensive end with taped up fingers. He can't catch. But anyhow, but I'm saying these guys, man, you're right, man. These guys started figuring it out, man. Doing their job and making plays. And how about how the secondary's been able to go out there and play? All banged up. We got 3 out of 5 guys out that aren't playing at all that we count on this year. You know what I mean? And that it's pretty crazy when you lose Nick Needham, you lose Byron Jones, you lose Brandon Jones. Yep. These are the dudes that were huge for us last year. But you get a Kohu, you get these other young guys that come in here and complement that, and Javon Holland in the secondary. And man, it's like, there's some really good coaching going on. And look at our new additions. We talked about West with the receivers. You got Pat and Sam in that secondary. Bring along these other guys that, when you got guys, that go down, you got next man up mentality, and it's been working out pretty good.
Well, and that's the thing. The secondary had been an issue, but again, if you're not bringing pressure, it's hard to be there out on an island. You saw this weekend when they were getting after the quarterback. I've never heard of Bethel. I'm not going to lie to you. And I do watch a lot of college football, watch a lot of NFL. I've never heard that name. That dude was everywhere Sunday.
Yeah, he was.
Undrafted free agent, has been a star this season. Yeah. And Xavier Howard, who is probably banged up because he doesn't look like himself by the second half, looked like Xavier Howard. It's like, look, I'm trying. I feel like I'm trying to calm myself down, but it's really hard because they look impressive and they look scary. And then you look at the Chiefs and they have some issues defensively. You look at the Bills and it seems like they have these struggles whenever everything gets too good. And you look at the Titans and look, for whatever Tannehill is, we know that team is very dominant on the run. If you can stop the run, you can stop the Titans. It's like, why not the Dolphins? Like, and that's my thing. Is the next thing I wanted to ask you, like, you can see when a coach is doing well. Look, a lot of these teams are not coached well. Like Brandon Staley is confusing. Like, he just is. Like Justin Herbert, I actually feel for the kid because finally he's getting the Tua treatment, where Tua has a good coach who believes in him, and Herbert has this dude that just is lost out there. Like, as a player, can you feel when your coach just really doesn't have a freaking clue?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We've had a couple, man, that coaching because they're friends with the head man. Absolutely. I tell some coaches, I always talk, there's a couple of coaches that tell you to, draw stuff up. And I always use the analogy. It's called theory and reality. In theory, that looks great on paper, coach. In reality, it's not going to happen like that when we start running full speed. So I like it. I like your attitude, but that's not going to be how it's going to happen, bro. When when the defense is moving at 100 miles an hour and changing position like that, So yeah, I get it. There are a few coaches that have no clue, and it's pretty amazing that they go through the coaching trees and go through all the the GAs and all this other stuff they've done through high school, college, and into the pros, and still get up there and like, bro, that is, and a lot of that has to do, and let me tell you, the reason that I talk about Sam and Pat and Wes so much is they played it at high level.
Yeah.
So you can really tell guys the real deal on how to do stuff when you've actually done it yourself. Some coaches don't get that street cred because they've never done it before. They only talk about it, seen it, on film. So that's part of the reason.
One, it's interesting because so often we see players who were great not be able to translate into coaching and they always talk about that with Michael Jordan because he was so good,
right.
You couldn't be him. And it's interesting. You have seen a lot of these ex-Dolphins, and I don't know if it's a Dolphin thing, but they're legit. Sam Madison did a tremendous job with the Chiefs secondary.
Yeah.
Pat Surtain did a great job with American Heritage. And he's doing that with the Dolphins. And Wes Welker, for the time he did with the Patriots, which we try to ignore and forget, was an elite receiver, not just, going down.
He's a Hall of Famer, man. He's a Hall of Famer.
He just ran great routes. He caught the ball. He was a team guy. He wasn't me. And it feels like he did that with San Francisco, and he's doing that with the Dolphins. And that's something you don't see everywhere. Like you can pinpoint. It's interesting you said that. I didn't even think about the actual position coaches. Mike McDaniel gets so much credit that I wasn't thinking about. And I was really excited to have these guys in those positions, and I forgot about them because McDaniel's so fun. You're right. Yeah. These guys are doing a hell of a job, and you're looking around the league and you don't see that.
No. I mean, from the beginning, I think we talked about it originally, man. I think Mike McDaniel, for one, that hire alone was humongous.
Yeah.
But two, his hires, his coaching staff. We talked about those three guys, but what about what he's done on the O-line? And Frank Smith,
yes.
and Embry, and all those guys. All those guys have O-line experience, man. And now we're starting to see the O-line come around, like we had hoped. Athletic. Now they can get downhill and get physical. You go and you get Jeff Wilson Jr. and you got Mostert that are running downhill with aggression. These boys are loving it, man. So, yeah, everything's starting to come together, man. Everything's starting to gel, man. I think one thing about it, they're doing it with humility that, they're not getting above themselves, ahead of themselves, man. They're taking it, honestly, one game at a time, one game plan at a time. And I'm going to tell you what else. We just had Alec Ingold on our
Yes, I
podcast.
saw. He's great.
He's incredible, man. The timing couldn't have been better. He had a hell of a weekend, and the next thing you know, we dropped the pod on Tuesday. We just dropped it. But the intelligence of all these kids, is really, when they talk, it resonates. You can tell how smart they are. So now they get these good players, really good players that are team-oriented, but super smart as well. Alec Ingold said they put in 100 plays a week sometimes, depending on who they're playing. You know what I mean? So that tells you, man, Coach McDaniel's no joke, man, but these guys are super smart and able to handle that workload and go out there and execute it.
OJ McDuffie, you can check them out. I know you do the post game. Do you do pregame for CBS 4 as well?
No, that's what Rondé and Kevin Rogers doing the pregame.
Oh, that's a nice combo. But I saw you guys. I know you do your 560 thing, and I know you also do stuff with CBS 4, and they also do the Fish Tank podcast. So definitely check that out wherever you get your podcast. Juice, you are the man. We love you. Thank you for giving us so much time, and we will try and keep having you on in the good is also the bad.
I love it. Yeah, I like it. I like it all, man. I can handle it all, Lubie. Thanks for having me on, bro.
All right, Juice. We'll talk, man. Thanks. The one and only OJ McDuffie. Look, Defo and I talk about this all the time. He just makes you ready, and it's not the phony. Eric Reed does that too, actually. You'll talk to, you'll be like, oh, I don't know about the Heat. And then you'll have Eric Reed on. You're like, yeah, Heat. Juice used to, whenever we were really down about the Dolphins, we would go, all right, let's have OJ on. OJ will make us feel better. And that sort of was the case for a long time. Now, so they were playing well, so I didn't need that spirit. The Dolphins were giving it to me. I'm like, you know what? We should have him during the good too. So I'm happy he's able to join us in the good and in the bad. And everything Dolphins, and they do a great podcast. They have a lot of fun, the Fish Tank podcast, and they do post game for 560 WQAM. And I think they do post-game for CBS 4, or they do some post-game segments for CBS 4 down here in South Florida. OJ McDuffie and his guys do a really good job, so definitely check him out at OJ McDuffie 81, at the Fish Tank 81 for the podcast. And coming up, I think in 10 minutes, we may talk to the man himself. The first thing you see up there, the Defo Show with Lubie. Defo is in Atlantic City. I think he had a mixed night last night. The professor has been killing it with Ball State. Defo asked, he received. It didn't work out. Ball State fell to Ohio University. But they also have Michigan State over Kentucky, which was a thriller. Went to double overtime, which isn't always your dream as a gambler. But it worked out. They not only covered, they won outright Michigan State over Kentucky last night. So mixed night, I think, when it came to the bets. I don't know how he's doing with horses and the table games. But hopefully, the one and only Jeff DeForest will join us in about 15 minutes. Following that, we'll talk a little bit more Dolphins and a lot of Canes. David Furones, who covers the Miami Dolphins for the Sun Sentinel. Before that, his job was to cover the Miami Hurricanes for the Sun Sentinel, and he is a Miami Hurricane alum. So we will talk with David Furones about the Dolphins, about the Canes, and about the NFL at large, since he is covering the team day to day. Just by osmosis, you end up covering a lot of the other teams, and you end up hearing about a lot of the other teams and talking to sources with other teams. So we'll branch it out with Juice. He is Mr. Dolphin, and I'm so happy to see how they're playing that I just wanted to really take in all the good. With Furones, we'll talk about the Dolphins, and we'll branch out to the rest of the NFL and talk a little bit of college football, as well as the latest college football poll is out. I think the Gators are just outside the top 25. The Florida State Seminoles are number 19. UCF, I think, is 20 or 21. And you have the same at the top as you had last week. Georgia 1, Ohio State 2, Michigan 3, DCU 4, and just outside the playoffs at number 5, Tennessee, number 6, LSU, and number 7, USC. We'll talk a lot more about that when we get back. Again, don't forget at 12 o'clock, we have Mike Mayo's Lunchbox. No Defo for that either, but you will have me. We will be live at Shenanigans Sports Pub East Side. Coming back, more South Florida / sports fun right here. The Defo Show with Lubie. No Defo, just Lubie on South Florida Live.
Folks, Tony Segreto here. Let me ask you a question. What do you look for when you go out to eat? Good food, obviously, friendly atmosphere, not too loud, but good energy, reasonable prices, and a place where you feel comfortable. All those ingredients, no pun meant there, are hard to find unless you're talking about the Texas Roadhouse. You see, they encompass all of those attributes. Really, really good food, amazing atmosphere, good for a family, good for a date, or just a night out for yourself, and prices that will make you extremely happy. Their ribs unmatched. Steaks hand-cut every day. Everything, and I mean everything, is made on site, including their incredible bread. It's the one day, folks, that you can forget about low-carb diets. Trust me when I tell you, Texas Roadhouse, your restaurant, your destination when you say, where should we go and eat tonight?
From the newly renovated sports bar to the beautiful bayside views captured at the Tiki Bar, Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill has it all. Located at mile marker 104, the Big Chill also offers waterfront dining while experiencing breathtaking sunset views of the Florida Keys. It's simply the hottest spot in the Keys to cool off. That's Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill at mile marker 104 in Key Largo. For more information, call today at 305-453-9066.
Recently, we realized it's not just hurricane season that can hurt us. Any time of year, things can happen to your home or business. And the insurance company can be your friend, but they also can be your enemy. Horizon Public Adjusters, Justina Testa, are here for you to help this process go so much easier. Before you call the insurance company, call Horizon Public Adjusters and Justina Testa at 954-809-8752. Would you go into court without an attorney? So why would you go up against an insurance company without Horizon Public Adjusters and Justina Testa? 7 to 10 times more money recovered with a public adjuster than if you went on your own. If there's no recovery, there's no fee. Give them a call at 954-809-8752.
To organize the winner, to organize the 2022 FIFA World Cup is Qatar.
We now return to the Defo Show.
Welcome back, one and all, to the Defo Show with Lubie. No Defo, just Lubie here on South Florida Live. Appreciate everyone who has found us this morning. And to those of you who are watching us later in the day, that means a lot to us. We really do appreciate everyone who's followed us on this journey from radio into digital streaming. And we're working on new things. We're going to keep trying to expand South Florida Live and really make it a place that represents what South Florida is, the good, the bad, and the insane. So appreciate for those of you who found us in our early days, and we're going to do our best to keep this thing growing, keep this thing moving. Defo is in Atlantic City. Andy on the chat is right. AC is the mush. Defo, I don't know if he ever has any success. He does decently well in New Orleans, I think. I think Vegas, he does okay. Down here, I know he does pretty well. AC, not so much. But so far, so good. I haven't heard any chalk outlining sightings. So that's a win. That's positive. He comes back Thursday, and he'll be on with us Friday. And I'm going to try and get in touch with him in the next 10 minutes, have him join us and just touch base with the man that started this all with us over 12 years ago, Jeff DeForest. Last night, you saw some really fun college football action from Maction, to be specific. College basketball thriller between Michigan State and Kentucky. The college football playoff has been released. Talked about it a little bit earlier in the show. It's funny. Before Oregon lost, it felt like you were almost assured to not have two SEC teams, because whoever won the SEC championship would go in. Whoever won Ohio State, Michigan would go in. Whoever won Oregon, USC would go in. And TCU, really, the competition the rest of the season isn't that scary. The Big 12 is a disaster. Brent Venables with Oklahoma, literally a dude that people were trying to pry him away from Clemson for years. Finally, a job that is one of those big jobs opens up that he wanted. He took it, got paid well. It's a disaster. They're not ranked. They've lost a ton of games. I think they're 500. They're not bowl eligible, and they may not make a bowl. A team that was top 5 or 6 to start the season, and a team that, Lincoln Riley left to go to USC, and he did take some players with him. That roster had tons of talent, and that team, fine, maybe they wouldn't contend as your first year. Okay, you make a bowl. You should make a bowl. If Cristobal with UM is one thing. He's following Manny Diaz. That roster didn't have that much talent on it. Oklahoma had plenty of talent, and the Big 12 isn't good. There's no reason why Oklahoma should not be making a bowl and at least winning 8 or 9 games. The fact that he's struggling to win 6 is not good for Brent Venables down there at Oklahoma. But the Big 12 isn't good. So TCU, the idea is, at least for me, look, I don't despise much in sports. I have my areas. I can't stand the SEC. That whole we against the world. I don't give a shit about anyone in the ACC. Literally, in what world is your division mates? When the Mets, I'm a Marlins fan, right? I root against the Braves, Mets, and Phillies with a passion. I'm not oh my God, the Phillies are there. The NL East is represented. What? Are you kidding me? Screw them. They're our literal enemy. They're our rival. That's what the word rival is. These people in the SEC. What are you talking about? You think the Gators give a shit about Bama? I never understand that mentality. So that's sort of, if you're not a part of the SEC, that's sort of bred this hatred because they have this weird, incestuous love-hate for each other. I'm telling you right now, I despise Clemson. I can't stand UM. Screw NC State. They're not our buddies. I'm an FSU fan. I don't like the rivals in my conference. So I have this distaste for the SEC. And the fact that they've ruled college football the last few years is annoying. So the idea that this year it looked like you would only, you'll get one. Between Georgia, Tennessee, LSU, Bama. One of them was going to be in the playoffs. Okay, fine. Georgia is the best program right now. Not Bama, Georgia. Georgia's the best program right now. Both, they recruit as well as anyone. And then their staff and the way their players grow is the best bar none. Bama, they're not done. Saban isn't done. But they're not doing what Georgia's done the last 2 to 3 years. They're not. Georgia's the best program right now. Fine. So I can see Georgia in the playoffs. But to see a Tennessee 2 or an LSU 2 or an Alabama 2, come on, man. We've already seen these games. I want to see a little differentiation when it comes to the playoffs. And that's the one positive that the 12 playoff grouping will hopefully bring, that there's so many teams that you do get some up, because that's the one thing you don't get really, right? Is upsets. But in the NCAA tournament, you do. So hopefully, because you have to play more games, it gives more room for upsets. It gives more room for differentiation. Well, Oregon sort of screwed the pooch last week because they lose, and they seemed like the team that odds on was going to. Clemson struggles, put Oregon or USC higher than Clemson. Well, Oregon loses. So now you're rooting, I guess, for an USC to beat an Oregon. The problem is USC's defense sucks. So if Oregon beats USC, now the two of them are out. Who is that fourth team? And it feels like, yeah, the loser of the Michigan-Ohio State game, if it's a close game, will have a gripe. Are you going to put that, or not you, I would. Is the committee going to put in 2 Big Ten teams or 2 SEC teams? LSU, who, if they do get past the Georgia, you're going to have Georgia in. Are they going to not put the team that beat Georgia in? Georgia, you put in. Tennessee, who, outside of Georgia, who's the best team, and it was on the road that they played Georgia, beat Alabama, has throttled everyone they play. They're an SEC team that has 1 loss. Are they not going to get in? So it seems like, it feels like you're almost assured 2 SEC teams again. And we've already seen Georgia and Tennessee play. Tennessee's getting worse. Georgia's getting better. Like, so fine. Let's say you move it where they don't play the first round. Okay, well then they'll probably play the second round. Like it's a little annoying. Like it felt like we had a little bit more parity this season. It felt like it was a little more wide open. And then you're seeing Georgia sort of pull away from the field. And then you're seeing the SEC get propped up. Ole Miss wasn't an 11th ranked team. But it's the SEC. LSU finally seems to deserve the ranking they have, but they do have 2 losses. It does get annoying the SEC is just dominant. No, they're not. They have 4 teams. And LSU, until the last 3 weeks, they had 3 teams. In a conference that has 14. How great of a conference is it if only 3 are good? Arkansas, all these other teams that were ranked are not good. So they get propped up where, the Big Ten's not good. The ACC is not good. No one's good. They're all equally. But for some reason, because ESPN put a shitload of money into the SEC gets propped up. So I was really excited at the prospect of having 4 different conferences represented in the playoffs. I mean, I guess it's not over. I find it harder. I find it difficult to find the angle where you won't get 2 SEC teams in the playoffs. So you'll get another repeat game. And that's the cool thing about the playoffs is you want new matchups, new blood, new action. So we'll see what happens. But the college football playoff rankings dropped last night. Jim Sarney, our friend, longtime writer for the Sun Sentinel, who you'll see chatting with us there, said, so the playoff rankings don't mean anything. He texted me last night. I'm like, look, as an FSU fan, it's nice to see them 19. Since the playoffs rankings were established outside of that first year where they made the playoffs going undefeated and then getting throttled by Oregon, they haven't been their season was done before the playoffs rankings were released middle around October. So it's cool to see them ranked, but do they matter? No, the rankings don't mean anything. We still have 2 weeks left. So, and a lot will happen. We have 2 regular season weeks, and then we have the conference championship. So a lot to be decided when it comes to the world of college football. Tonight may be the release of the Cy Young. I don't know. The only reason it matters to us down here is because the Miami Marlins may have the winner, Sandy Alcantara. By the end of the year, he came back to the pack a little bit, but in an era where going 6 innings is amazing and going 7 is unheard of, he had 6 complete games. He not only led the majors in complete games, he led by double to the next person in complete games while still having a really good ERA, while still having a ton of strikeouts, while having a great whip, and really not getting any run support. I mean, his run support was abysmal, was abomination, and he was playing for a team that was out of it early, was a total disaster, was in total disarray, ends up losing his manager, ends up losing the president, and still somehow just every 5th day, Alcantara went out there, you knew you were going to get a great game from him and probably a victory. Or if you got a loss, it was because it was 1-0, and he was going to go 8 or 9. So Sandy Alcantara being named the Cy Young is not a shocker. It's not a surprise. It may happen today, so that'd be really cool for an organization that has nothing going for it right now, the Miami Marlins. That'd be something fun to see thrown in there. This is the Defo Show. No Defo, just Lubie. Here on South Florida Live, coming up in a few minutes, we may have the man himself, Jeff DeForest. I'm going to give him a call in this next break and see if he will join us and just have some fun with us and just regale us with some of his AC tales. And then 8:35, we're going to talk to Mr. David Furones, longtime Well, what's a long time actually? Because that's the thing is, he's not like Hyde. He hasn't been there 30 years, but he's been doing this a few years now in the newspaper game, a game that much like radio, where we used to be, is quote unquote dying. I think it's transitioning well to the online world, and David Furones has been with the Sun Sentinel for a few years now. He was the beat writer for the Miami Hurricanes, or of the Miami Hurricanes for the Sun Sentinel. Now he's the beat writer of the Miami Dolphins for the Sun Sentinel. So we'll talk with David Furones a little bit more about the Dolphins and expand it to where the Dolphins fit in the league at large. And before the Dolphins, he was a Miami Hurricanes beat writer. So we will talk about the Miami Hurricanes season so far and his outlook on the Mario Cristobal era now and in the future. So coming up next, a lot more here to come. We will talk with, hopefully, the one and only Jeff DeForest, and then David Furones. This is the Defo Show. No Defo, just Lubie, here on South Florida Live.
Ponies in Style at Champions, the outstanding simulcasting room at beautiful Hialeah Park. Yes, the grand old lady of thoroughbred racing has never been more vibrant, and you can wager on the races from the top tracks around the country while enjoying a cocktail at the Brass Rail Bar or any of the fine food served throughout the facility. If poker is your game, you're covered in style, and you can play all your favorite Vegas-style games, including blackjack, craps, and roulette, in Hialeah Park's sizzling hot casino. Get a player's card when you walk through the door for all kinds of generous amenities, including our favorite, free play, when you come out to the ultimate casino and entertainment destination, Hialeah Park.
Hey folks, Tony Segreto here. You know, since day one, Catholic Health Services has been part of Old School. And since we've started letting people know about them, it's changed their lives. You see, Catholic Health Services, while being recognized as one of the top places for stroke rehab in the country, it's also about a group of people who not just excel in what they do, from the doctors to the nurses to the therapist, on and on and on. It's how they do what they do every single day that separates them from the pack. They do it with a passion, unmatched, and the inclusion of family in every step of the process. Trust me when I tell you this. If you want the best, unmatched rehab with a special group of skilled, caring people, there is truly only one place, and that one place is Catholic Health Services.
These days, we're all looking for comfort anywhere we can find it. Thank goodness for Landlubbers Raw Bar and Grill in the Plantation location, because they are making sure you are as comfortable as possible. First of all, they're not only open for delivery and pickup. All you have to do is go to landlubbersbarandgrill.com for both pickup and free delivery. Their hours have changed a little bit. Monday through Thursday from 3:30 to 10, and Friday, Saturday, and Sunday from 11:30 to 10. You're going to have the best wings in the world. You're going to have a great burger. You're going to have their amazing soups. Again, Landlubbers, Raw Bar and Grill. It's nice and easy. Just go to landlubbersbarandgrill.com for both your pickup and free delivery. Thank goodness for Landlubbers for making you always feel right at home.
You can't fake caring. Women can sense this immediately. You don't really care. You didn't really want to do any of this.
We now return to the Defo Show.
Welcome back, one and all, to the Defo Show with Lubie. No Defo, sort of, just Lubie. But speaking of that, we have the man, the myth, the legend himself, the one and only Jeff DeForest, joining us now, live from Atlantic City, New Jersey. Good morning, Defo. How you doing, sir?
Mike Lubie Lubitz. I think this is a first. We are always accomplishing new frontiers in broadcasting here, but I believe this is the first time I'm a guest on this show.
On your own show.
Yeah. Now, we've called in before from various locations when I've been traveling about when we were doing the radio, but
Yeah.
I want to say on South Florida Live, first time ever being a guest, and you're coming in loud and clear, Mike Lubie Lubitz, and all the rage, all the talk in the various sports and race books that I've been frequenting here in Atlantic City, New Jersey is, wow, did you hear Lubie yesterday? He was doing it by himself. The guy's great.
Yeah, I'm sure.
You're a big hit with the mafioso wannabes that frequent the same establishments that I do.
All righty, so we'll get right to it. Not only are in AC, but you still were smart enough to be like, you know what, let me go to the source and see if I can get some tips for Tuesday night. I know you reached out to the professor. How did the professor's plays go yesterday?
Well, I'm on the 19th floor of Harris Hotel in the water tower.
Oh, Jesus.
And I was trying to dislodge a window last night after I got back from the bludgeoning in the sports book. And we were heroes there just the night before because I pulled a Jersey Kyle move.
Okay.
And I thought about, and we had discussed this at great length on the program when I took off on Monday. And you're thinking, well, what is there going to be to play in the sports book on Monday night? Of course, it was Monday Night Football. You had the 4-5 Washington Commanders franchise in the dire straits and utter turmoil from the top and maybe all the way on down. They were going to start this Heineken kid at quarterback after a failed experiment with the shot fighter Carson Wentz. Ron Rivera, who we both greatly admire because he's such a down-to-earth guy, and we've met him a couple of times. We were big fans of the fact that he traveled without entourage at Super Bowl Radio Rows and would sit down with us, and it seemed very straightforward. But he was not that happy of a man earlier in the season, Ron Rivera, as the Commanders looked like they were going to go into the toilet. And I'm looking at the undefeated Philadelphia Eagles. They were laying 11 points in the ball game, and I looked and I thought, wow, you know what's going to happen here? This is going to be their first defeat. So we talked about it, and the lady looked at me, and I don't know if it was, as shocking as when finally somebody's going to hand the subpoena indicating an indictment to Donald Trump. That might be a shock, but when I said I would like Washington on the money line.
You did do money line. Good for you.
It was 4-1. It was over 4-1.
That's what I told the professor yesterday. I'm like,
410.
wouldn't he get 4-1 if he did money line? He's like, I don't know. He's like, that's interesting. I'm like, wow, I hope he got 4-1.
Anytime you have a proposition where you think there's even the slightest chance that you can succeed and you're getting 4-1 and there are only two possible outcomes, which is either the Commanders win or lose, you may as well take advantage of it. If you're going to take the points were a lot. They seem very generous in the NFL. Anytime you get double digits, you have to take a look at that. But Washington, actually, I did a little studying, believe it or not, Mike Lubie.
I'm proud of you.
I clicked on my phone and I started looking up the stats, the defensive stats of the Washington Commanders. And what I saw, though, was that in their losses, they had been highly competitive.
Yep.
And then to confirm my belief, I picked up a copy of the New York Post, which I had taken from home. And I look inside, and sure enough, the guy in Action Sports, Tom Casal, not only loved Philadelphia to win the game, but he recommended that you get out early and lay 6.5 in the first half.
Nice.
So I started thinking about and dreaming about making all kinds of parlays. How can I maximize my chance to have action on this game, over-unders and the first half bets? And I thought, no, forget about it. Just go ahead and plunge and put a stick on the money line. And it was great. I've never had so much enjoyment watching a game, especially when that wide receiver fumbled after it looked like he was about to go in for the go-ahead score. And Big Rich was with me, and we both started screaming at the top of our lungs, "Money line!" I would say it wasn't like the room was packed, but there were maybe 50, 60 people in there. And all of them turned around and looked and said, "No, those are the assholes that bet this team on the money line." And then when it held up, I mean, it was delightful, and there was nothing. It was the first time I ever cashed a ticket at the Harris Sportsbook. It's not like I pounded a bunch of tickets there, but you know me, I bet my 5-16 parlays just to have some action. Last night, though, a disaster. I bet a 14 parlay and 3 of them lost.
No, you didn't. I thought you took Michigan State because I've been touting all morning that you did Michigan State on its own, and they ended up winning outright. So I figured I guess you got that. Like you parlayed all of it?
Nothing.
Oh,
no, I completely screwed it up. I wish I could tell you. I was teasing Jim Sarney that I bet Michigan State on the money line, but I didn't have the balls to do that, nor the intelligence. And I went right back to my 14 parlays, losing 3 out of 4. You know, you feel better when you lose 3 out of 4 in a parlay.
Exactly.
My best bet of the night went down. I mean, the Knicks in total disarray to the Utah Jazz. They go on the road and beat the Jazz by 7. Laying 5 points, Utah was, and I thought that was a cinch with all the stuff I've been reading about the Knicks and how they're getting ready to fire Thibodeau, and you know, they're not getting any mileage out of half the guys they thought were going to be really good. Brunson was even having some subpar games; he was benched.
So, of course, they have a players-only team meeting, and they go out there and they crush the Utah Jazz, who I believe had been undefeated at home.
Oh,
And
Jesus.
that line had moved from the time I first looked at it early in the morning until later in the afternoon when I actually made the parlay.
Yeah.
And the Jazz went from being favored by 4 to being favored by 5.
Mm.
So, of course, if I just stayed with my anti-logic mode, I would have been okay. But and Michigan State was a great pick by the professor, by the way, because it never looked like they were in jeopardy, except you always have to worry when a game goes to overtime after it looked like. It's funny because you're rooting for the team, to go ahead and
to not win.
perform well, and then you're rooting for them to lose at the end.
It's so funny because I'm with him at Vega and we're watching it, and I'm scared. When it comes to him, I've gotten yelled at so many times that I don't ask him anything when I know he has a bet on a game. I just shut up. But I'm like, okay, it's 2 points with 5 seconds. I'm like, and the spread was 3. I'm like, overtime's actually bad for them because it can become like 8 or 9.
Of course.
Yeah, I've learned that from you. You do that all the time. So I'm like, I think I'm rooting for them to lose now. I'm like,
Overtime is not your friend when getting points. And it happens frequently. And then it goes to double overtime on top of that.
I know.
At that time, I was still alive for everything because Duke also went down. That was another one of the professor's plays.
Nice.
And I had money, in that parlay on Ball State, which the Ohio quarterback, Miami of Ohio quarterback, I guess it was Ohio, not Miami of Ohio. Ohio quarterback gets injured, and they bring him back up, and he immediately fumbles near the goal line. And I thought, okay, this is good, because we were down 2 touchdowns at the time, and only needed to get within 3.5. Yeah. So I thought, all right, that's it. Ohio's not going to score again, and here's a perfect opportunity for Ball State. Yep. But I was cursing David Letterman at the end of the evening and telling people that Letterman's not funny. He was never funny. And I go way back with Letterman, all the way to the showbiz in the mid-'70s in Hollywood, California, where he first started performing. And yeah, it was ugly, but I don't mind. If I'm going to lose, I'd rather lose like most of the games than have, if it came down to the Utah game against the Knicks and I lost that, it would have been very, very disappointing because the tellers, the clerks had gone. And so there was no way to even hedge off if you had won the first 3. But, yeah, I'll be back in action tonight. I'll take a few swings. There's like 3 college football games, I think, and some college hoops. And I'll rely on a professor who made a great call on Michigan State. But I couldn't believe, for the professor to, lay out money on Duke, he had to have a firm conviction that they were going to be big time over Kansas. And that didn't turn out to be the case. So no Coach K to curse at. And unfortunately, it was a small wager for me, but nonetheless, a losing proposition all the way.
Well, we always love your tales from the restaurant, especially in Atlantic City. You won't be joining us on Mike Mayo's Lunchbox. So I will ask before I let you go. I know you had your Chef Volas. I know you had a Gordon Ramsay meeting. How have those gone?
Well, we haven't got a Chef Volas yet. That's coming up tonight, which that's going to be a spectacular. It's absolutely, I think it's one of the best restaurants in the country. Mustang kind of gave me a look when I said the country, but certainly I think it's one of the best dining experiences I've ever had at any restaurant. So I'm going to go ahead and, Mike Mayo would condemn it and make a face because he's never eaten there and doesn't even know where it is. But he would still insist that it seemed like a ridiculous opinion. It would be like if I said Fuddruckers is the best restaurant in the country. But Chef Volas is fantastic. I mean, if you read any of the reviews on the place, you can go on any site that has restaurant reviews, and everybody will tell you it was one of the best dining experiences they ever had. And you would love this, Lubie. It's actually, for as exclusive as it is to get in there, it's actually dirt cheap.
Really?
By comparison to almost any place that you would go. Yeah. I mean, the world famous chicken parmesan, I'm looking, there's kind of a wetlands little arrangement outside the window here.
Okay.
And I'm looking at a giant island where birds are, using it as a sanctuary. The chicken parm is the size of this island that I'm looking at out the window. It's absolutely delicious, prepared perfectly, raved about by virtually everybody who's ever tasted it. And on the menu, I was looking, it's $23.
Oh, really?
Which you would pay that, at any restaurant. You're looking at a chicken parm dinner, and it's going to cost you $30, $35.
Yeah, for sure.
So, for a place like that to be that reasonable is incredible. Plus, you bring your own booze, which is a fantastic concept. So we put a couple of bottles of wine in the bag, got it on the plane, managed to just get under the weight limit there. It was a Don King situation. I thought I was going to have to pull one of the bottles of wine out, but we weighed in at 49.8 pounds.
Oh, my God.
With that bag, yeah. I don't think they really care because it's a charter flight full of alcockers. And once again, it was kind of weird because here I am.
What was
at 71.
over-under of the wheelchairs? I didn't get that from you.
Oh, my God. This was great. And it's nice to know other people are thinking the same way that you are, especially the people that deal with this every day. So we're at the Sun Country terminal, and it was a Sun Country flight that they charter. And Mustang was giving me a look and kind of whispering under her breath, I think we're easily going to go over on the wheelchair involvement. And the guy that was taking the ticket said, yeah, no problem there. There's going to be at least 10. And they also had an over-under line of 5.5 on every flight. And true to form, honestly, true to form, one of the ladies that was sitting near us and then ended up running to the bus was using wheelchair assistance to get on the plane.
Nice,
So,
nice.
but yeah, a lot of older people getting on this junket here. But really a nice time, I got to say. I mean, I don't know if the Mustang, when she might have blown some secret money in the slots, but even if she's down her original stake here, to get this kind of treatment is exceptional. And once again, we're in a suite of rooms that is just absolutely palatial. And looking very much forward to the Gordon Ramsay thing was a comp, so I didn't mind any of it. Food was great. I mean, it would be radically overpriced if you were paying for it, but as it was on a freebie, it was sensational last night. One of the best steaks I've ever had. And we had this lobster mac and cheese that was scrumptious. Lubie. I would have to say Gordon Ramsay hit a home run with this one.
Yeah.
And all words are that we always ask the people that work there, have they seen Ramsay? Is he around? And they all say the same thing, that in stark contrast to his persona on TV, the guy couldn't be any nicer or more jovial of a guy.
Well, that's funny.
And comes into the restaurant and is extremely encouraging. And I didn't realize this. Gordon Ramsay actually owns like a handful of restaurants in the New Jersey area. I thought that it was just like a casino joint. And, of course, they have a Gordon Ramsay out in Las Vegas, and I think that's part of the Paris. But, so I thought he was just opening up casino restaurants, but he has any number of freestanding Gordon Ramsay restaurants, and very, very popular. I mean, I felt, really superior in there because I thought, wow, these other people are paying? Somebody has to be paying there. It can't all be Casino Comp City, but it was really good. So the dining here is off the chart, and I can't wait to get to. I can't eat all day today because I know I'm going to Chef Bolus tonight. And I usually don't eat giant meals at night, so the Gordon Ramsay thing has me more than stuffed. And getting ready for my what will be a little bit of a cool and cloudy walk of life here.
Nice.
That first blast of cold air, you know how this is when you go to a city where you're not in Florida anymore. It was like 45 degrees, but more than tolerable.
Yeah.
But I love that first blast of cold air when you walk outside the airport. So it's a little different up here than it is in South Florida, that's for sure. Cloudy and rainy today, and going to be about 45, but going to get out on the road there and do the walk of life and hopefully, lose enough calories or work off enough calories to be able to afford, Chef Bolus tonight, which is going to be spectacular.
Well, enjoy your Chef Bolus experience. I'm glad to hear you actually had a Gordon Ramsay experience that didn't end up in someone telling you how.
Last time was a disaster. Yeah, wow. I almost had to fire a steak at Gordon Ramsay. If I saw him on TV, I would have hurled that thing at the set. But they hit it to perfection this time. Bone-in ribeye, rare plus, and it came out just right.
Good, man. All right. Well, enjoy Chef Bolus. Send our love to the staying. Continue to listen to the professor, but actually listen to him. The parlays never are your friend. And
I respect the professor, though. I mean, that was a good call on Michigan State. For him to like Duke and have them lose, I know that had to be a crushing defeat for him. And the Ball State game, I mean, like all games, they're hanging in the balance at a certain point, and then the team commits a stupid, turnover or gets penalized, and everything reverses. But Ohio, unfortunately, was in a commanding position mostly throughout that ball game, and when Ball State had its opportunity, they whiffed, much like the Yankees did when they were in the playoffs. and that was that. But it only takes one loss in a 14 parlay to ruin and upset the apple cart. I did do well at the track though, which was great. So yeah, so that. Yeah, so I'm hanging in there. I'm
don't open the window. Keep the window closed.
Well, between the Commanders and the racetrack yesterday, I'm actually doing all right. But other than that, I got one more day to survive, and that's the problem in gambling. You have to wake up every day and realize today is a brand new day, and that bad luck that you've been carrying your entire life could easily come right back and hit you in the face.
Well, we hope it doesn't show rear its ugly head till you get back. We will see you Friday morning on the Degenerate Friday.
Friday morning, I'll be back. Yeah,
and enjoy the rest of your trip, Mr. Jeff DeForest. Thanks, Steve.
And the Dolphins, big news all over the country. Everybody's got high praise. It's unbelievable.
Well,
yeah,
that's interesting. What is the Jets vibe? Actually, I meant to ask you that. What is the Jets? They must be. I mean, in Jersey, they must be geeked with the Jets.
Didn't see much steam on the Jets.
Really?
I guess because they didn't play last week.
Okay.
And it's early in the week. And I was surprised. There were Eagle fans, of course, galore.
Yeah.
With the short stop, it's an hour away, Philadelphia. So the sports books were filled with a lot of Eagle fans last night, and that's why it was especially pleasant to be screaming "Money line" all throughout the fourth quarter.
That's the fan base you want to mock.
Yeah, it was fantastic. Yeah, it really was. I mean, I'm surprised we didn't get killed.
Exactly. Yeah. All right. Well, don't get killed financially or physically, and we'll see you Friday, Mr. Jeff.
No,
DeForest.
I should come back in reasonably good shape. All right. Lubie, always a pleasure. You're doing a great job.
Thank
like
you,
I said, you're all the rage here in New Jersey and parts unknown, anywhere where they can catch the show. They're all raving about the fact that you're holding down the fort and that the old man should probably retire permanently.
No, we don't want you retiring. We just want you thriving and surviving, and we will talk to you in a couple days. Deefness, thanks for joining us this morning.
Always a pleasure, Lubie. Keep up the good work.
All right, Deef, thanks. The one and only Jeff DeForest, the namesake of this program, was the namesake of our former internet radio network, and the guy that I do not want to retire anytime soon. I mean, he's allowed to. I mean, he is in his early 70s, but as you can tell, he doesn't live like it. He's making fun of the old people, and he's 71. So keep that mentality, Deef. We don't want you going anywhere. The idea is this is just the beginning, trying to grow this thing, and the hope and the belief is that you will be a big part of it. I am shocked because this is the third time now he's done the Gordon Ramsay comp, and the first two did not go well. And it's a restaurant where you're getting steaks for $80, $100, $120. So you think it's at least going to give you good service, or at least going to give you the product you asked for. And the last time the steak was well done, and the lady's like, cut into it. He's like, cut into it? Like, you can tell when a steak's well done by touching it with a fork. She's like, yeah, cut into the middle. He's like, I know what well done is. She's like fighting with him and yelling at him, like in the middle of this really, really expensive restaurant. So I was curious to see how it would go again. Nice to know that they got their act together when it comes to the DeForest household. And the Chef Volos, I've been to Jersey when we went to New York for the Super Bowl a few years ago. I've never actually been to Jersey, and I've definitely never been to Atlantic City. So I don't know about Chef Volos, but I know his friends love it. I know he loves it. So whenever I get up there, I will make sure. And I love chicken parm. I know Mike Mayo, chicken parm. There's nothing wrong with it, but it's a dish you can make at your house. You don't go out and order a chicken parm. You order a pasta dish. I understand. My wife feels the same. I like chicken parm. Okay, we grew up on chicken parmesan. My mom makes a great chicken parm. I like chicken parm. Whether it's simple, red sauce, Italian, whatever you want to call it, I love it. And when I go to an Italian restaurant, it usually is my go-to because you get a good portion. It's pretty standard. And then you get the pasta. So you're assured a good meal. But there are different levels of it. So the fact that he says it's like a really good chicken parmesan, I look forward to that. And I'm sure they do a lot of great other things at Chef Volos. So that was the one and only. For those of you who got a lot of me the last 2 days, I made sure to give you a little bit of him. And he will be back with you Friday. I will be back with you after this, talking lots more Miami Dolphins and some Miami Hurricanes and some NFL and some college with David Furones of the Sun Sentinel. He has been the beat writer for the Canes, now is the beat writer for the Miami Dolphins for the Sun Sentinel. Next, and don't forget at 12 o'clock, we will have Mike Mayo's Lunchbox right here. Mayo and I, with Patrick Utter, are live from Shenanigans Sports Pub East Side, Patrick Utter's establishment. So had a lot of fun there a few weeks ago, and really excited to get back there. Great food, great fun, great atmosphere. And Patrick Utter is a man after our heart, a degenerate at heart who loves sports and loves good food. What a combo. Really excited to be with Pat once again today on Mike Mayo's Lunchbox, live from Shenanigans Sports Pub East Side. Coming back, more of the Defo Show with Lubie. No Defo, just Lubie. And David Furones here on South Florida Live.
Folks, Tony Segreto here. Let me ask you a question. What do you look for when you go out to eat? Good food, obviously. Friendly atmosphere, not too loud, but good energy, reasonable prices, and a place where you feel comfortable. All those ingredients, no pun meant there, are hard to find unless you're talking about the Texas Roadhouse. You see, they encompass all of those attributes. Really, really good food, amazing atmosphere, good for a family, good for a date, or just a night out for yourself, and prices that will make you extremely happy. Their ribs, unmatched. Steaks, hand-cut every day. Everything, and I mean everything, is made on site, including their incredible bread. It's the one day, folks, that you can forget about low-carb diets. Trust me when I tell you, Texas Roadhouse, your restaurant, your destination when you say, where should we go and eat tonight?
From the newly renovated sports bar to the beautiful bayside views captured at the Tiki Bar, Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill has it all. Located at mile marker 104, the Big Chill also offers waterfront dining while experiencing breathtaking sunset views of the Florida Keys. It's simply the hottest spot in the Keys to cool off. That's Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill at mile marker 104 in Key Largo. For more information, call today at 305-453-9066.
Of course, I got in about 2 a.m. last night. Do I look like Lubie? Good morning, by the way.
You look
Do I
good.
look like Anita Cutman?
You look good. I'm proud of you. You're like ready. You're on time. All the guys there didn't have to stress out waiting for you. Look at you. A new day.
I'm a professional. There's no question about it. And I don't like to lose a job on the first day of the job.
That'd be good.
Which is ugly. Because we already lost one job, and we got fired by Fox. And in fact, you and I, Lubie, are the only starters that were ever beaten out for a job by Brady Quinn. If you can kind of wrap your arms around that concept.
Grab a bagel and a schmear, plus some Defo and Lubie. Welcome back to the Defo Show.
We may have lost our gig to Brady Quinn, but this is a gentleman that's on the rise, was the beat writer for the Sun Sentinel for the Miami Hurricanes, now in the preeminent spot with the Sun Sentinel covering the Miami Dolphins. And I'm sure he still has his eye on the Canes, or we hope so, because I'm going to talk Canes with him anyways. And we'll talk the rest of the NFL college football right now with the one and only David Furones joining us this morning. Good morning, Mr. Furones. How you doing, David?
Good morning, Lubie. How are you? And how'd I know you'd want to talk Canes football? The FSU Miami result is still a little bit fresh in both of our minds.
And it's so funny because all off season you heard Canes fans spouting off, and you heard it's not to rub your face in anything. I am a South Florida guy, as we've talked about, and I used to. It's hard now because Canes fans don't make it easy, but I always had a soft spot for the Canes. So it's more of a curiosity. It's not the Canes are down, ha ha ha. Because we do our stuff out of South Florida. So the Canes being good would be a good thing for us. As you know, in South Florida, if you're not good, people don't care. And it's another topic to talk about. So I actually want to talk Canes from a perspective. But before we get there, your gig now is the beat writer for the Dolphins. I'll ask you before we get to the winning and all the fun. I like that. It is interesting that you got to start this gig with Brian Flores and now Mike McDaniel, because you get to see a juxtaposition. How different is it covering, not even with the winning, just the way they're ran, covering the Dolphins from last year under Brian Flores to this year under Mike McDaniel?
Right. I mean, definitely a 180 in personality from the head coach position. And we see it in the media, and I know everyone watches the press conferences, and you can certainly tell the difference in their personality from watching that. But then also the way they communicate with players, where definitely Flo was some say disciplinarian, but he had a different way of approaching players, either when things were going well or going bad. And Mike McDaniel seems to just be 100% supportive at all times, and I think the players really do appreciate that. I mean, even instances where, all right, like Chase Edmonds didn't really click here in Miami in this wide zone scheme, and he had run inside zone his whole career at every level. So it didn't really work for him here, and the trades that involved him going to Denver and the Bradley Chubb deal, bringing Chubb here, and then also acquiring Jeff Wilson, turned out to be a huge net gain for the Dolphins at both positions. But he didn't really bad talk Chase Edmonds on his way out. he left it up to other factors as to why it didn't work here, or said it wasn't really that. It wasn't that was what he said. And then Jason Sanders now, he's struggling with some short kicks, and he's expressing his confidence in him. So I think the players see that, they recognize that, and appreciate it, and they want to play for him. They want to fight for him.
Well, and that's exactly what I was just going to say is, whereas Flores, it's this old school, I'm going to beat you down and you're going to push your way through. McDaniel is the total opposite, where he empowers you even when people don't understand why you'd empowered you. Like Jason Sanders, I'm not going to lie, missing 2 extra points in one game seems irreversible. Like that seems like the kind of thing as an NFL kicker, there's no coming back from. But Mike McDaniel, this is who he is. The guy who keeps missing 4th and 1s, but he doesn't care. He's going to let his players know he's behind them 100%. That does feel night and day from Brian Flores. And in this day and age where players are so quick to say, screw the coach, it feels like it's brought them closer to their coach.
Right. Absolutely. So, I think the players do appreciate it. And yeah, I mean, it really is, like I said, a 180, because you saw me going back to the press conferences, and Brian Flores would always be kind of hold everything tight to his vest, not reveal as much. Now, Mike McDaniel doesn't reveal much of his strategy. He always makes sure to keep that away from the public, but he has a good way of still giving you enough nuggets and giving you ample answers while still being witty at the same time. It seems like every question he ends up starting with some witty response to either the way it was asked or the question itself. And then he's not just joking around all the time. He still will then answer your question and give you adequate information for, what myself and the media, if I'm asking it, or all the fans who are listening and want to know those same things. So I think, from all perspectives, and I think a lot of people really appreciate how Mike McDaniel has come along in this fresh perspective that he gives us.
Well, and talking about difference from Flores to McDaniel, where you never saw Flores talking to Tua. McDaniel's first call when he was like got the job and was ready to take over was to Tua. And whether it was PR, whatever it was, he did it. And they were on the phone a while. And you've seen the two of them be lockstep, which, again, most of the franchises that have success, the quarterback and the coach, work hand in hand. There is so much different about Tua this year. There's so much different about his play, the way he's acting. But what has been the biggest thing for you to see? Because you've been around that organization a lot the last 2 years, and it is night and day for him specifically on the field and off the field. What's the biggest difference that you've seen in Tua this season?
Right. Yeah, McDaniel has certainly instilled a lot of confidence in Tua. So you saw this new personality from him, and maybe it's also just Tua getting more comfortable in year 3 as a professional. And you saw it in the offseason, going back to just the way he was in interviews with us. I don't want to make it seem like everything's about interviews in the media, but I think you did see that personality, that confidence really exude from him when he was, talking his talk, as he was feeling more confident. And then on the field, you knew about the accuracy, the ball placement. He throws with anticipation, is able to see the field, understanding of offenses, just playing winning football. He's had that. And then now able to drive the ball better with more force. That was always the knock on him. And I think there have been some instances where we still see some deep balls that haven't been placed as deep as they should, some underthrows. But, I mean, he's playing about lights out, as efficient football as you can these past 3 games. And then I highlight back-to-back throws that he made at the end of the first half last game, where he throws one that is, it's just a 5-yard out, 5 to 7 yard out, but it's a 36. He converts it to Jalen Waddle. Where that ball has to be thrown on a rope, and it has to be in the right spot. Otherwise, a DB can take it back for a pick 6 because he's got no one in front of him if he gets it. And he throws that one exactly where it needs to be with the right velocity that he needs. Then 2 plays later, his next pass, it is a dime in the back of the end zone, the corner of the end zone, to Trent Sherfield, allowing him to tap his toes inbounds and spreading the ball out now too, because in that game now we're mentioning Sherfield was his first touchdown as a Dolphin, although he should have had that other one in Detroit that wasn't challenged. Alec Ingold getting it in there, and so many different receivers whereas before he was kind of dependent on Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle earlier in the season. So really, we saw him expand his game there and say, hey, look, it's not just Tyreek and Jalen. I can get the ball to multiple guys in this offense.
Well, and the thing is, at least, and you said it, for most of this season, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle have gotten theirs. With the one, and it's whether it's old school or new school, football is about the lines. In the end, if your offensive line and your defensive line play well, it makes everyone's job, quarterback, secondary, whatever it is, easier. The lines, as much as they looked better, the Dolphins, the lines were struggling. The offensive line still looked very reminiscent. The running game is supposed to be a big part of this offensive system, and he was sort of just throwing it away because the running game wasn't coming together. And the defense, which had all these guys that had a lot of success rushing the passer, was not able to rush the passer. Well, this week, it felt like everything came together for both. Like that offensive line, whether it's Snell, whatever it is, that offensive line was dominant. And the Browns have a good defensive front. Yeah, they're not great against the run, but they have a good defensive front, and they owned them, whether it was a run or the pass. It looked like early 80s Dolphins, the way that they pushed the Cleveland Browns around. Myles Garrett did nothing in that game, and Myles Garrett is a superstar. When you go the other side, the defensive line, Bradley Chubb, the addition of him, which week one, they sort of integrated him slowly. Well, it exploded on the scene in the second half where Phillips, Wilkins, Ingram, and Chubb were at the quarterback time and time again. And it felt like what Mike McDaniel and Josh Boyer talked about and we're waiting to see, we all saw in front of us. What seemed to be different for them this week as opposed to the other weeks when it comes to the offensive and defensive line?
Absolutely. In recent weeks, the physical aspect of the game coming together for the Miami Dolphins. And then I think we saw it culminate. 3 performance we saw where there were wins where early in the season maybe the defense had to pick up the offense. So whether it be New England or Buffalo or Pittsburgh game, then there were games where the offense had to win in a shootout because the defense couldn't get many stops. Detroit, Baltimore, the big comeback, and Chicago the week before. So finally, to see it all come together was really encouraging. Right before the bye, too. So now the team getting healthier, although you got some guys out for the season that you won't get back. But overall, gives the guys a chance to rest up for the final stretch, which will be a challenging one. But, yeah, the physicality up front, Teron Armstead, completely or very close to eliminating Myles Garrett from that game. You didn't really see much of him. Robert Jones has been very good at the left guard position since Liam Eichenberg has been out. Brandon Shell at right tackle, the veteran that after week 1, they signed him to the practice squad and he was off the street and then had to kind of work his way back up. And now he's starting and playing very well at that position. Even after Austin Jackson was injured, and now it'll be a question on whether they do bring back Jackson or let Shell keep going where he's been so successful stepping in. But the physicality that Jeff Wilson addition brings to the run game, that was something that was missing from the run game when it was Chase Edmonds and Raheem Mostert, kind of 2 guys that neither one is a physical presence downhill runner. Now Wilson brings that, can wear down a defense and then open it up for Raheem Mostert to go break off a big one when he gets in there. And then defensively, of course, to finally see it come together with, like you said, just it's the waves of pass rushers coming in where all 3 sacks, they were split. That means 2 guys are getting there at the same time. So it's not just one guy won his matchup, 2 guys getting there. And oftentimes the third that is opening it up for the others. And 14 quarterback hits in total in that game on Jacoby Brissett. So very encouraging to see all of those things come together. That pass rush, too, is also going to be vital for a banged-up secondary to be able to make it through this season as well, help them out.
And look, I get it, you cover the Dolphins, but I mean, you're going around with these games, you're seeing these other teams going into the season. Again, the Dolphins, I don't know about again, but the Dolphins haven't won a playoff game since early 2000s. So expectations were, man, if they can get to the playoffs and then win a playoff game, wow, what a season. Well, they're 7-3. Their offense is amongst top 3 to 5 in the league. Their quarterback's amongst the top 3 in the league. Their defense has a lot of signs of getting better. And we know what they can do when they're healthy, and they seem to be getting healthier at the right time. It feels like the expectations we had coming into this year are sort of getting wiped away by bigger and better ones. You're a South Florida kid, I am, so it's hard for me to embrace these new expectations. When you look at the Dolphins, when you look at the rest of the AFC, which it's funny, AFC was supposed to be this juggernaut. Seems like everyone's coming back to the pack while the Dolphins ascend. What do you think the ceiling can be for the Miami Dolphins this season? Because we heard Tua talk Super Bowl and people gave him shit, but it's like, what do you want him to do? They're 7-3. They're leading their division. They're number 2 in the conference. What else should he be talking about?
Yeah, and I like that. That's the expectation that the team is deciding we are going to rise to the occasion. We're not going to shy away from it and be humble and say, well, we still have to win some games. No, go ahead. You're on this team. You're expecting to win every time you step on the field. Go ahead and take that personality. Now, as far as now the Dolphins are winning this stretch against some teams that are lower on the standings.
Yeah.
Now it does get challenging in December, so it'll be a huge determination if they can continue it down this stretch. Buffalo Bills, you still expect them to finish strong. They're in a little bit of a lull right now, but they were preseason Super Bowl favorites for a reason. So the big thing will be, listen, if the Dolphins can win the division over the Bills, maintain this lead, they got it right now, and then obviously they have a game in hand as far as have played one more game. So now the Bills and Jets will get a chance to even it back up in the win and loss column. But if the Dolphins end up with a home playoff game because they win the division, then that'll be huge. If you end up number 2 like they are now, then you start with 2 home playoff games. So that's a track to the AFC Championship game. Then and it would be an epic season. Now, if you end up in the wild card because the Bills do what we expect down the final stretch, and even if Miami ends up with, say, the 3rd best record in the AFC, but ends up number 5 because they don't win the division, then that will be a challenge. You probably end up playing on the road somewhere. It could be cold temperatures, could be the snow, and then other factors come into whether you can win a playoff game. So that's where it does get difficult. But ultimately, still, and this is still year 1 of all this of Mike McDaniel. So even if it does turn out with the lower expectation part of it, then it's still encouraging because you're still seeing the fruits of it, and you understand, hey, it's only the first year of Mike McDaniel with this version of Tua. The defense, coming back, but then making these additions, and the run game being implemented, all these things kind of coming together. And we're seeing that this team is willing to make improvements to the roster. The rebuild is far from over. Now they're trading away first-round picks to add established talent to the roster. So you're seeing the vision right now come together. So, hey, maybe it comes up and comes to fruition this year. Maybe it still takes some time, but it's still an ascension, a positive sign either way.
All right, you talk about first-year coaches, and I sort of, I don't know about mocked, but gave guff to Canes fans that get too high or too low. You're not one of those. As a guy who did cover the Canes before you're on the Dolphins beat, you're on the Canes beat. You're also a Cane alum, South Florida kid. Okay, so it is year 1 for Mario Cristobal. I remember coming into it, a lot of people were high. You weren't negative or positive. You were excited, but I don't remember you boasting about crazy expectations. What has this season been from your perspective as a guy who covered the Canes during the Manny Diaz era, who, even though you're a Dolphins, you will post about the Canes and you do still have, I'm sure, ties to the Canes and are still talking to people. What are your thoughts on the Canes season so far and Cristobal's first year?
Yeah, I think, you have to take everything with a grain of salt. It is still a college coach's first year with the team. So he's working with the past coaches, players, implementing new systems. So you understand all that. At the same time, it's discouraging that this team is still losing 5 games to this point. I mean, it could very well be more, and they're still battling for a bowl eligibility here these final 2 weeks. Have at Clemson and then home against Pitt to split to get to 6-6 and make a bowl game, which is really discouraging because you were doing that under Manny Diaz, and then now Mario Cristobal. You would feel if you're improving the coaching staff and the team in general as a whole, then you should at least be able to do that. But you understand maybe Manny Diaz wasn't going to take them further than a certain level. So sure, maybe if you have to have a transition season and there is that perspective where, okay, you're transitioning. So give Cristobal some time to bring in some of his own recruits and implement his system. Tyler Van Dyke kind of worked better when he was under offensive coordinator Rhett Lashley and his spread up-tempo system than what has been incorporated with Josh Gaddis. So maybe that's part of the transition. But They kind of found something in Ja'Cory Brown, the freshman quarterback, last week at Georgia Tech. That could be something going forward. But overall, then, still a long way to go on that. Hey, Mario Cristobal really did kind of hint at this, I think, a lot in a lot of press conferences, saying, hey, we're not at that level yet. So I think he probably saw some of it and then now is working toward building it. Ultimately, I mean, he does know what it takes from being a player at the University of Miami, winning at the college level as a player, and being around Nick Saban in Alabama, and doing it himself at Oregon before coming to Miami. So I would say I still have confidence in him. You're going to have to, because he's signed to a very long contract. So it's not like you can make a move anytime soon. So it will be interesting to see if it does develop the way Canes fans hope and expect over years to come. But still discouraging that in year one you didn't at least see. You came in ranked. At least become a top 25 team. There's no reason why in the ACC you don't end up 8-4 as a floor, as a floor, and more likely 9-3, something like that, even in the first year of a coach with as much talent as this Miami Hurricanes roster has coming out of South Florida.
Well, and before let's go, I would like to ask, being a guy who covered the Canes and then also has some fan tendencies, if not a lot of fan tendencies toward the Canes. The staff was a huge part of why people had expectations, because they went out, instead of usually, just nickels and dimes, they went big, and people were really excited about that. Do you see, or do you think, or would you like to see any staff moves? Because Josh Gaddis was a guy that was the Broyles Award, the highest rated assistant. He won it last year, but when he left, Michigan fans were not upset, which I found a little strange. And they were actually, when you look deeper, you saw a lot of griping about Josh Gaddis. And you brought it up, like Rhett Lashley, for whatever he was coming into Miami, he was phenomenal with Tyler Van Dyke, and they worked really well together. And you saw that Van Dyke and Gaddis did not work well together. And yeah, maybe the Brown is a future going forward. He's more than modern. He's athletic while still having a big arm, and he can throw, and he's a big, strong dude. Fine. Even then, though, we've seen Josh Gaddis sort of, his offenses before now, Mario Cristobal's offenses before now, be very vanilla, be very old school, not the kind of thing that really accentuates the speed that South Florida is known for. Do you see him? Do you think he should make any staff changes this offseason? I know it's year one, but again, it was very disappointing, but you said, and a lot of people have said.
Yeah, and I don't think it's unprecedented to make significant staff changes after year one. I mean, you got year one under Cristobal, and then Cristobal is had a chance to see how this coaching staff can come together. Remember this all-star coaching staff, like you said, going all in and really investing a lot into the program. So, yeah, he's got to find what pieces fit, what pieces didn't, and make determinations off that going forward. So I don't think any assistant is owed more time than they need. The head coach, his reputation is on the line as well. I know we've seen head coaches in the past kind of stick to their guys a little too much sometimes, and then that's cost them as well. So, yeah, you have to do what's best for the program, and if something isn't clicking, then yeah, you go ahead and you shouldn't be shy about making a move after year one.
His name is David Furones. Does a great job with the Sun Sentinel on the Miami Dolphins. Check him out on Twitter at David Furones. David, appreciate your time, man. You always find room for us, and I'll look forward to talking to you again soon, my friend.
Absolutely, anytime. Appreciate it.
Thanks, man. The one and only David Furones here on the Defo Show with Lubie. No Defo, just Lubie here on South Florida Live. Coming up in about 3 hours, you will see me again, and you will see Mr. Mike Mayo. Mayo and I will be live at Shenanigans Sports Pub on a Shenanigans Sports Pub Wednesday. Eastside Patrick Utter, the great proprietor, will join us. You got a little bit of Defo, so if you've been missing Defo, I made sure to get you a little bit of Defo. Defo, I don't think will be joining us, but you will get Mayo, you will get myself, and you will get the one and only Patrick Utter live from Shenanigans Sports Pub Eastside at 12 p.m. I do appreciate having OJ McDuffie join us. He, as Jim Starney put it, he was scintillating He was a lot of fun, and you should check him out on the Fish Tank podcast and their stuff they do with 560 WQAM down here in South Florida, and on CBS 4 also down here in South Florida. And a big thank you to David Furones for joining me as he covers the Dolphins for the Sun Sentinel. I'll be back tomorrow. We will have a very busy Thursday here on the Defo Show with Lubie. No Defo, just Lubie. We will have a Hialeah Park Trivia Challenge. We love Hialeah Park. They have always been big supporters of us, and we adore them. When it comes to casinos, they not only are fun, but you actually have a chance of winning. Defo's done a lot of bets at Harrah's, and it's the first time he cashed a sports bet. You go to Hialeah, you have a really good chance at winning, and you have an amazing 100% chance of having a good time. So we love Hialeah. We appreciate their support, and we love the Hialeah Park Trivia Challenge. So hopefully you join in on that tomorrow. Dave Gurgles Gurgley will be with me tomorrow morning at about 7:30, and then 8 o'clock. We were supposed to have it today, but this man is traveling. The one and only Tony Segreto, kicking it old school with Tony Segreto, just after 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. Thank you to Texas Roadhouse and Catholic Health Services. And of course, Friday, we will have our Degenerate Friday. Our handicappers, I think, they had hit some struggles, but I think they had a good week last week. And they're going to keep that fire rolling. The Professor, the Greek, Mark Lawrence, and the Gambling Gourmet himself, Mike Mayo, all Friday on Degenerate Friday. So check us out then. Check us out at 12 o'clock, Mike Mayo's Lunchbox. And tomorrow morning, right here, the Defo Show with Lubie on South Florida Live.
Let's go to eat a damn snack.
Look what they done to my show.